What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale coming at you for a third consecutive episode with Mort Jensen of the NBA podcast, of Yahoo Sports, of Sports Illustrated. What else did I forget? Of Legend.
I I don't think you've forgotten anything. Look, it's too many things. It's too many things. It's fine. You can just say one thing and that is completely acceptable. So thank you, as always, for the very, very kind introduction, Dan. And I love how we pivot always from our off the camera, off the microphone chat and going straight into analysis, because if people knew for how long you and I would chat before we started recording and what we would chat about, they'd be like, that's a podcast in and of itself.
Yeah, it's behind the NBA podcast, OnlyFans paywall. Go check that out. Link in bio. We could use another word in bio too. So we're here to do. We did our Eastern Conference teams that we think are worth monitoring the most closely as NBA trade season kicks off December 15th, when a bunch of dudes who sign contracts could be traded. Guess what happens after the Eastern Conference? One, go check out that podcast if you haven't already. It's on both the NBA podcast feed and HardwoodKnocks. We talk about the Western Conference. So we're going to follow the same format. We're looking for teams that we think are going to define the deadline, or that we have the most questions about, or we think that need to make moves, whether they're buyers or sellers. We'll alternate picks. I don't know who Mort's going to pick. He doesn't know who I'm going to pick. It's going to be super fun. Do you have any additional thoughts before we get off and rolling here?
No. Let's get the show on the road, because you and I, we can go long on every. What would we agree on last time, that each episode would take 45 minutes, and then we ran.
We said we were going to do this entire exercise East and West in about 90 minutes, and we did about 90 minutes on just the East.
Right, so, exactly. So maybe let's
only do 20 minutes on the West to really make those Pacific Mountain Time Zone people feel like shit.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. So no, let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it.
I did the intro, which means that Mort is the guest. And so Mort gets to go first again. Mort, which Western Conference team should we be watching ahead of NBA and into NBA trade season?
I would like to start with the San Antonio Spurs, because I think they are so interesting. Not just because they have Wemby. Well, that's part of it. Who is that? I think he's French. I think he's French. Maybe. He could be from a different planet. I'm not I still to this day, Dan, think that the Matrix might be real, and sometimes it's testing us. Wemby is sort of like one of those elements where it's sort of like just feeling it out. Like, are you guys paying attention? Are you seeing what's happening right now? Of course, it's all Wemby driven, though, in terms of why this team is interesting, because
they need to trade him, you think?
Yes, preferably for a second rounder and like cash considerations.
Yeah,
that'd be a good haul.
Hashtag Bulls,
right? By the way, fun story. The Bulls decided they're not going to tank that year. Then they kind of tanked like last year when the draft was very shitty, and then apparently they're not going to tank again this year when it's Cooper Flack and Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper and stuff. It's very funny.
I don't mean to troll them, but they got Josh Giddey. They're set. So they don't got to worry about that.
Julian Phillips, come on down.
What are they're Gucci, as I think the kids say, or maybe they're adults now. They're Gucci.
They're Gucci. See, I don't get that reference outside of like the actual bag, the Gucci bag.
I think that's what it's implying, is that they're on the level of Gucci because they're just so well off at this point. The Bulls.
Well, the Spurs are, in reality, if we go back to reality, the Spurs are, because they have their superstar. They have their guy who's going to lead them into everything. And Dan, they might also have the best rookie of this draft class in Stephon Castle. I mean, this guy is extraordinarily good, and I think people tend to overlook him because of the lack of scoring efficiency. But if you watch him play, the defense is there, and like, he's fantastic. Mm-hmm. So they have so many chips that they can move forward with. They have tradable contracts. Like Kelton Johnson, for example, if they determine that he's not a part of the future, he's only earning $19 million this year. That goes down to $17.5 million next year, and again, $17.5 million the year after, which is like 10% of the salary cap. So he's movable. They only have Harrison Barnes and Zach Collins, who you can make an argument are their quote unquote worst contracts through next season. So they're tradable. Mm-hmm. Chris Paul is only on a 1-year deal. Like, if he retires, he retires. If he returns for a cheaper salary, that's also good. Like, everything for their sake is pretty well aligned. Devin Vassell is also on a very team-friendly deal. So they can go in and make moves. Like if they decide Kelton Johnson should go somewhere and they can get another piece in, they can do that. They have a lot of draft equity if they want to. They own Atlanta's unprotected first rounder this year. They have their own. They might have Chicago's as well, just to bury the Bulls fully. So they just have so much flexibility that the world's their oyster. They can do whatever. They can sit in silence this trade deadline and they'd win, and they can be proactive and do something and they'd win too. It's very hard to see this team coming out as losers in any way, shape, or form right now.
Here's my thing. I mean, I just never find the Spurs interesting around the trade deadline. They're not these teams that typically make many moves.
Right.
And I do feel like they've telegraphed, especially with what they did over the offseason, where they move the pick that becomes Rob Dillingham for distant first round considerations, a swap and the outright pick, as to say, like, no, we're still slow rolling this, but we're not punting on now because we know Wemby's too good. We're going to bring in Chris Paul. They are fascinating though, because there has to be at least some impetus to be, no, we don't need to go we don't need to go get Brandon Ingram or Jimmy Butler or one of those names, but let's add some shooting or like someone who's a little bit more dynamic on the ball as a floor spacer too, or just another, do we think that there's a better front court partner for Wemby out there? Or even right now, like the offense has been 12th in points per possession the past like month, past month, I believe. They might decide like, maybe we want to skew even a little bit more with defense. And so we have Wemby and we have Steph Castle and now, we have Sohan, but they don't necessarily, you mentioned Keldon Johnson. I feel like he's been on the trade block since he signed his extension a couple years ago. I do think they have some stuff. Jeremy Sohan, it's very clear what he can be on defense. And then it's very clear how he's best used on offense. I am curious about his long-term fit. All of which is to say, I would be a little bit surprised if a Keldon Johnson or Jeremy Sohan or really anything, even a Harrison Barnes, I'd be surprised if any of those moves happened in season. I look at the Zach Collins contract and say, if you're only give up a little bit of equity, what can you do? We already talked about, like, could you get the Raptors to give you Bruce Brown? So we don't need to go back into that. But that seems like it might be not their best course, because their best course is Wemby's so good now. We have enough assets to create our own trade market.
Right.
Let's just go see who we could get. It seems like they are what they should do, given their direction. What they actually want to do long term is futz and fiddle here. Like, don't let the trade deadline go by and do nothing and be content with contending for play-in consideration.
Right.
And so that's why they're interesting to me, because I think Wemby's good enough not to make them entirely buck their trend of their more conservative approach. But I do think he's good enough, and they've been good enough that even Devin Vassell since coming back, and the starting five that they have, I think Devin Vassell should start, but you look at the results of their starting five right now, and they're winning the minutes by I think they have a net rating over 20 last time I checked. So I would like to see them. They have a net rating of 18.1. I was wrong. So they suck, clearly. There's like the bones at the top of their roster specifically. Like, there are intuitive fits. There's some upside.
Yep.
I just want to see them go get like another rotation player, preferably one, I think, like, who opens up the floor for them. But again, the offense has been pretty good of late. Maybe they do look at going in a different direction.
I mean, I'm just going to repitch my own trade. And I did this a couple episodes ago, again, with the Bulls. We still have to finagle the parameters there. But if you could go out and get Kobe White or Ayo Dosunmu, or even both, for example, that's what I pitched over at Forbes. I said both of them for Malachi Branham, Zach Collins, their 2027 unprotected pick from Atlanta, plus the Bulls' own pick back. You said that's not enough for Chicago. While I agree with you, it's at least worth a shot, because if you see how the Bulls negotiate, it might be enough. Honestly,
the Bulls are now catching strays in the Western Conference.
I don't care. That's fine. It's well deserved. But that's a call that I would like to make, because there are several components to this, and there's a reason why I keep singling out Kobe White for the Spurs specifically. One, him and Chris Paul, they have this very deep-rooted relationship. They know each other very, very well. So if he can come in and actually have the mentorship of Chris Paul for at least a half a season, maybe another season going on, he'll just kind of absorb Trey Jones's role. And don't get me wrong. I like Trey Jones, but I don't think he's going to be long for this roster. You need guards who can shoot next to Wemby.
Yeah, if he could shoot like Tyus Jones, maybe we'd be having a different conversation.
Right. Exactly. Like Tyus was a guy who I also thought would be interesting for them, but then they went out and got Chris, which, okay, you get that. That was the perfect move for them. But Kobe White is a guy who I think just fits this roster so perfectly because he can play on ball, he can play off ball. He's become a better defender. He's become more assertive. He can get to the free throw line. He can play make. There is this element of grab and go that he has that I don't think a lot of their guards have, as currently speaking. And you can really set up a really nice spacing element around Wemby if Kobe White and Devin Vassell are on the floor together alongside Wemby. And you and I talked over the last pod that the Bulls should be open to trading Kobe White because of the 140% extension limit. He's going to eventually see himself in unrestricted free agency because he's impossible to extend. So I think I agree with you that the Spurs aren't in a rush. They're not inclined to make a deadline deal because they rarely do. But if they were so inclined this year, I think that's the name. I think it's Kobe White.
That's interesting because you don't think they're going to want to wait and see if Steph Castle turns into someone who's going to, or I guess the flexibility of having Kobe White
both.
Play off
That's
ball.
The thing. Yeah, you can play them both. That's the great thing about this. You don't need to pick between them. Like those two work. I mean, Stephon Castle and Kobe White alongside each other. I could see that being one of the best backcourts in the league in a couple of years. Like, look, they're both big. Castle is 6'6". Kobe is like 6'5". Obviously, Castle is like his defensive upside is way bigger, but then you have the off-ball capabilities of Kobe White, the scoring knack for him. You're also just going to need a guy who can get into the paint consistently and just score to open things up for Wemby. Like I love Devin Vassell, but he's not necessarily that player. Kobe White is a little bit more inclined to drive, I feel like. So that's a weapon I would love to see them go get. And I think they can get him.
I think they, like I said at the top, I think they have the assets to where they could pretty much create their own trade market if they wanted to. They're just, even Kobe White seems like a name that would be a little too high end for the Spurs to go after mid-season. But I think he's a fantastic fit. I think, what do you view as their bigger need? Do you want them to get that type of player, or would it be, we kind of want to upgrade from the Jeremy Sohan, Keldon Johnson, Julian Champagnie, Harrison Barnes, like primary front court partner for Wemby slot?
Dan, you and I like each other, so we're not going to be fighting right now. I don't want to hear any upgrade from Julian Champagnie slander right here. I won't hear about it. He's really good, man. I don't want to hear about it.
You don't have to talk me into Champagnie. I love Champagnie. I'm just saying. So you view the bigger need as like, well, let's get that kind of like more dynamic.
Yeah. You need a guard. Yeah. So because it's a ripple effect. You need to have guys move the ball. Like, so there was this idea that Wemby could just consistently create his own shot off the dribble and getting inside to the paint. And he can to some extent, but he's so tall, Dan. Like, he's so tall that guards, opposing defenders they just know, like, there's so much ground to go in and go for the steal because the ball has to travel from his hands and down to the floor, and that's a pretty far distance. Like, he'll get better, of course, but he will need someone who can actually penetrate the defense. And if he runs as a trailer or he pops as the 3-point shooter, I think that opens it up a little bit more. They need someone who can just kind of create some attention for themselves and thus alleviating some attention from Wemby. And that is a Kobe White-esque player. And given Kobe's contract is brilliant, that's why I singled him out.
I think that's a good point to move on. I'm going to go with the Sacramento Kings here.
Oh, love it.
I want to know, one, if they're going to do anything, because they did make waves over the offseason. They got DeMar DeRozan. We saw that happen, but they've kind of punted on making any meaningful mid-season additions. Mm-hmm. And I think this is weird. It's very rare that I am higher on a team than their fan base. And it seems like I might be higher on the Kings than their fan base at this point, because there are issues there, but I just feel like they're on the cusp of something. They've had some, I don't want to call it, they've just not played well in net during crunch time. They have more losses in the clutch than any team outside Charlotte right now. You've also we've seen it normalize a little bit. Kevin Huerter in his new role, shooting better. Keegan Murray shot a little bit better lately, I believe, but like those cold stretches from them. You were missing DeMar DeRozan. You were missing Malik Monk. I would argue the fact that, and I know that like there have been some extremes on both ends of the spectrum, that they have a league average defense relative to the personnel that they have. They're still in like a fairly good position. And
Yep.
I think if you can go out and if you want to try and consolidate, could we get someone who might be more of a consistent shot maker than a Kevin Herter who's been riding highs and lows for a long time? Do we want to go out and get a Larry Nance Jr. or a Dorian Finney-Smith just to maybe boost our front line optionality alongside Domas Sabonis or even behind him if you wanted to play Larry Nance at the 5? They definitely look their defense. A lot of it is prided on getting set. They're doing an excellent job of getting back after they're missing kind of threes or jumpers. But like when they get into kind of if they're getting looks at the rim or they're getting into that short mid-range area, those guys, they need to do a better job of getting back on defense. Like they've gotten burned on at least a lot of the possessions that I've seen from there. And you can quibble again about their shot profile, which is, I really think it wouldn't be as, it's not cataclysmic. It wouldn't be as stark if you didn't have those starts that you did from Keegan Murray and Kevin Herter. But if you can get someone who's going to help you maybe even out that shot profile, but we talked about this team when it came to most confusing, that might be more of a matter of lineup staggering at this point. So I think they have a couple needs. I wouldn't say no to them just getting kind of another wing defender since Keon Ellis doesn't seem to be guaranteed necessarily any set minutes. They definitely need, though, and part of this I know is a function of how they're going to try and limit looks at the rim. And I think that this might be solvable with the personnel they have, although with some of the lineups, probably not. Like someone who could get out and contest other teams' jump shots would be really huge for them. And I know that like if you're a Keegan Murray, for example, like you're also trying to concern yourself with helping and, walling off those, excuse me, as I choke here, those pathways to the basket. So they're in a tricky situation, but I think they need to just get someone. There's probably like 2 or 3 archetypes that would fit that just makes the jobs or the makeup of their team make so much more sense. And it's gettable with the assets they have. Like they have future firsts that they can trade. If you look at Kevin Herter as money that you're willing to move, like they have the ability to salary match. And I think they could go up and down the spectrum of, do we get a rental, someone on expiring? Do we get someone that we view as more of a long-term piece? I am just curious, though, if they'll make any significant acquisitions when they're maybe still trying to figure out, well, what is our big picture arc for this DeMar DeRozan, Malik Monk, De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis quartet?
The fact that they're almost $6 million under the first apron is such a huge win for them. It might be their biggest asset. The fact that they can aggregate contracts and they can do this. So I want to know what they can get if they package Kevin Herter, Trey Lyles, and a first. I want to know what that gets you. I'm not really sure.
So that's a 20, because their first this year is going to Atlanta unless it falls in the top 10, right? So that would be a 26 first. Or is that no, that's a 27 first. That's attractive. I wonder what front office would be thinking in those long-term like aims, like maybe a Brooklyn,
right.
But I wouldn't want to give up a 27 first for, I honestly, if I'm the Kings, I know Cam Johnson has been mentioned a lot. I don't mind him there. I think I want someone who's better on defense than him, or at least a better rebounder in general than him. But in a nutshell, you would give up that package for him, I think. But I just don't think that he's the answer. And that's also why the Kings are confusing is I almost prefer them to make hit a double rather than go for the triple or the home run. And that would be a Larry Nance Jr. That would be a Dorian Finney-Smith. We're just going to recycle the same names here. But that's what makes it tough is that I don't know if you're not getting someone who profiles as part of your closing lineup, it very much complicates, well, what type of impact are they going to end up having on this overall product?
Right. It doesn't have to be one player either. Like it doesn't have to be a 2-for-1. You could just find a guy who you like and then take on a secondary guy, like with a mint deal, for example. So it's a 2-for-2 deal. I feel as though they have options here, though. It's just, what kind of archetype should we look for? I actually think the Cam Johnson idea is interesting, even though he's not the best defender and the best rebounder. He comes in and gives you the off-ball stuff that you so sorely need right now.
He would definitely help. I think Keegan Murray's role specifically would look a lot better for Keegan.
Yeah, exactly. I think he moves the needle more.
Okay.
a little bit more than maybe you do. I'm not sure, but like I like him. I think Cam Johnson's offense unlocks a lot of things, and you know me, I lean more offense than I lean defense. I love defense, but I worry more about like offensive fit than defense. And for the Sacramento Kings in particular, who need to like recapture this idea that, hey, we're one of the most potent offenses in the league, adding Cam Johnson and his 44% from three on high volume, I don't hate it, man. I mean, he will come in, play off other guys. He won't utilize possessions with the ball in his hands as much. That so you can kind of leave that up to DeMar.
Mm-hmm.
What's a good deal? Like what kind of, like, do we need to look for a specific archetype or specific position?
This won't help the rebounding, and I don't know if it helps the defense enough. But what about and he's playing well right now, so I don't know why the team would necessarily want to trade him. What about DeAndre Hunter for this team?
Oh, I love DeAndre Hunter's season this year.
That gets tricky because why would Atlanta want Kevin Huerter? I mean, they probably want a first, but why would they want Kevin Huerter back? But that's where you rope in other teams. Like the Rockets could imagine Kevin Huerter on the Rockets. That'd be a good like you just rope in third and fourth team.
Like the Red Rocket on the Rockets. That's what you're going for. Yeah. Okay. I see the logic there. So DeAndre Hunter is interesting, right? That's so funny because he's a guy who, when he signed that deal, a lot of people were like, oh, that's a little rich. And then over the past couple of years, it was like, oh, that's way too rich. Like he's overpaid. And now he's sort of Harrison Barnesing, like in his prime, like he's just cleaning up his own shot diet. And now he's on the cusp of actually being underpaid. So like, it's a real predicament for Atlanta too. Like, do we believe in this? Is this the new DeAndre Hunter moving forward? Or should we cash the fuck in right now? That has to be a conversation in Atlanta. So, like, if I'm the Kings, I at least call them and to listen. Like, what would it take for DeAndre Hunter? Like, what would it take?
Do you know who would be great for this team specifically? And I think people don't realize how big he is. I don't think his team would trade him, to be clear. Aaron Wiggins would look really good here, addressing basically everything that we want them to do. And well, like that's the closest it comes to, all right, this player isn't a megastar. He'll check mostly but like not fully, but he'll partially check a lot of the boxes they need. He would be fun. Like he can play wing minutes.
That's a good shout. That's a good shout because he can play the three, he can play the four.
I do think this is futile in the sense that they're probably just going to end up trading for like a Jae'Sean Tate or a Cody Martin or a Larry Nance, which all those names would be fine. I would like to see them aim. Well, honestly, I would love Larry Nance Jr. in Sacramento. Playing with Sabonis or kind of behind him is a different look instead of Trey Lyles. But I think they should, because like you went and got DeMar DeRozan, who's 35. Like now is the time. And so I would like to see them be more aggressive. I'm hard pressed to believe. I think it's possible because of what we saw them do over the offseason, but I need to see it to believe it.
What about Bruce Brown? And we'll move on, but that's the last guy. We brought him as a possible Spurs target. What about Bruce Brown as a Kings target?
We're just going to see how many non plus shooters they could play at once and just still make it work.
I think he's a decent shooter when the personnel around him fits, though. Like you can count on him to make the open ones, and you can
go downhill and he can make passes out of that.
He can make passes. Like, look, I don't understand why this isn't a guy Grant has a hard on for, because he can pass on the move.
I'm sure Grant has gotten an erection over some Bruce Brown type of play at some point.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure that we're not forgetting Grant's erection.
I'll have to confirm with him next time we speak, but I would say that's a Grant Hughes player at his peak for sure.
Exactly. Like, but that's also, it opens up the floor. Like he's a little bit of a wild card.
My whole thing is like, you don't think that's someone who's, for offense specifically, is too on bally. Like he can do some of like the big man stuff off the ball, but then you've now decided, well, he can't play with both DeRozan and some, but like that just can't happen.
Right. And you know what? That's a fair point, because Malik Monk has developed as a playmaker so much in recent years. So we have to factor him in as well. Like he needs the ball in his hands a little bit more. You know what? You're right. We have to lean into like off ball guys. Oh, you know what? There's a guy in Detroit. Like he's not earning a whole lot.
You know, Stewart, I wouldn't hate on this team, FYI.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking a much lower salary.
Oh, can I try and guess?
Yes.
Simone Fontecchio.
No, although I will sold. It's in that same breath. Malik Beasley. I wouldn't hate a Malik Beasley there. High volume 3-point shooter off the catch.
What do you give up for him when you're not going to have bird rights? You can give him 120% raise off of $6 million, so he's going to leave. That's the problem.
Well, is he though? Like, remember last year he got like the
mint
deal for.
Beasley doesn't get more than like if he doesn't get closer to the mid level than not next year, someone needs to start a GoFundMe for that, bro.
Right,
like,
but like. I agree. I thought he would be a non-tax MLE target for the past 2 years. Then he signed for like a mint deal in Milwaukee, and then he got $6 million this year. Like, yeah, sure, he's trending upwards, but like, it seems like he's gettable every single year. So like, I wouldn't hate a half-year rental with Beasley on that team, and then just hoping that he stays.
Yeah, just what do you give up for that? So it's Trey Lyles, and then you're gonna get smaller, so you're gonna need to get a big. At some point, Trey Lyles and
expand the deal. Maybe they can get Isaiah Stewart and Malik Beasley.
That changes the calculus for sure. Then that gets you a caps lock rim protector in there as well. I like that. So Isaiah Stewart and Malik Beasley are going to be making about 21 million combined. I think Isaiah Stewart's at 15. I should pull up his salary page. That's a doable number for them if you're going to get. And look, but at that point, like going from Kevin Huerter to Malik Beasley, do you view that as an upgrade because of the contract? Because Kevin Huerter has to go out in this deal unless you're trading Detroit.
Right. You probably have to relinquish some draft capital to get this done.
So would you prefer, just forget about any of the capital that's going there, would you prefer having Huerter and Lyles or Stewart and Beasley, knowing that Stewart and Beasley would come at the cost of some type of draft equity?
I would rather have Stewart and Beasley at the cost of some draft equity because again, it doesn't that package doesn't justify an unprotected draft pick, for example. Like you would have to protect a first. And as soon as firsts are protected in this league, I feel pretty good. Like most teams are pretty smart about protections. So I would roll the dice on that. Plus, like, let's be real about this. The Kings are a win now team. Like even though most of their core is pretty young, they're in it to win it right now. Like DeMar is 35. Like they want to get shit done right now. This Malik Beasley, Isaiah Stewart trade, even if you relinquish some level of draft capital, that's a move for now. That's a win now move. Which why not? Go nuts.
I know we have Kings fans that listen to us. I really want to know if you're doing as the Kings, just assuming this year's pick conveys, it's 2027 is the first, plus Huerter and Lyles for Stewart and Malik Beasley.
With the caveat that it's not an unprotected 2027.
Yeah, first. I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, and I want to know I think Detroit would have to, depending on if it's heavily protected, Detroit has to say no.
Yeah. No, it has to be like protected at the right place. This is something that I feel is forgotten in most trade conversations when we talk about protected picks, right? Everyone is like slinging this out like, oh, it has to be protected. Yes, sir. That's cool. But at one, like something can be top 1 protected, can be top 20% protected. That's a major fucking difference right there in those two. So like lottery protection, top 10.
I don't think if I'm Detroit, I don't know if I mean,
top 10.
Kevin Huerter makes a lot of sense there. But you're giving away 2 players who've been really good for you for a lottery protected first. I'm probably not doing it. If
top 10, then. All right, fine. Here's what we can do. Top 10 protected first year. Top 8 protected next year. And then honestly, I wonder if we should just from there, like basically say if it hasn't conveyed, then it transforms into 2 seconds or something. I don't know.
I still think I like it for Sacramento. And maybe if you include another swap like in 2026.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so lottery pick, lottery protected, and then a swap option.
I honestly, I think it has to be top 10 protected at most.
And a swap.
And that's even just, do I hate that for both sides? We need to move on. But that's an interesting framework.
Well, I will say this on the final note. I will say this. Mark Stein reported in the summer that the Pistons were trying to shop Isaiah Stewart and couldn't find takers. So maybe we're overestimating his trade value.
That's true. I mean, he's someone, can Isaiah Stewart, here's the question, can he play 25 plus minutes per game on a consistent basis? And we still don't really have the answer to that question.
Then maybe that answers whether or not we should really like give them top 10 protection. Maybe it's just a lottery protection, take it or leave it.
Well, I mean, so if they just have to haggle over their protections, if you get, it's weird because what did Stu play last year? He played over 30.
He was pretty good. I feel like but the thing is, Detroit fans are a little bit like, in my opinion, it seems like he's very up and down in terms of the fan base. Like some love him, some hate him. He's like,
I think he's
I
great.
can't
It's
figure.
just we don't have the evidence of can he play heavy minutes on it. Like the
Right,
Pistons are better, and I don't think this is a symptom of it, but like he's playing less. And so it's just and it's also in the Kings instance, like how many minutes are you actually playing him because he's
right.
Sabonis's backup / maybe you pair them together a little bit. I forgot he averaged 30 last year, over 30 minutes per game, only in 46 appearances. But yeah, I love that deal, the framework of it. But a first and those two for Stewart, and then you would have to work back. What are the protections? Are there any swaps that would make Detroit like? What is Detroit's terms on that?
Yeah. It's interesting at the very least, but we should move on. You're right. But like, I think we have a framework here at the very least. All right. So I think it's my turn. I hate to bring this team up, Dan, but I think we have to. They're just constantly in the rumor mill. The Houston Rockets. And I'm not a big proponent of, hey, let's accelerate the rebuild, because I think they're doing pretty good as currently constructed. And I like the young core. I think
they're one Josh Giddey away from being something really special.
Smart. Personally. Yes. That is every Bulls fan on earth is nodding along with you right now. Yes, that is they need specifically Josh Giddey. That is right. They can't trade Jalen Green. That's the big one. Like, because I feel it's necessary to say, because I see on a daily basis way too many like trade deadline Jalen Green trades where I'm just like, it's poison pill status. It's not going to happen. He's just, no, it won't work. So he's not going to be able to be moved. What are we looking for here? Because if they are to make some sort of move, it has to be a consolidation thing. They're so good right now that I'm not in like the Jimmy Butler territory of adding a guy who's 35. I want to say if you have to go for someone, it has to be someone who is in like at the most in his mid to late 20s. And I just don't know if that guy's out there.
Yeah, and if I'm them, I'm not consolidating until the off, like real consolidation. The trade that I've been kind of proposing for them is Jae'Sean Tate and Jock Landale, and then do you need seconds for Duncan Robinson?
Right. Yeah.
That's the type of player. And then you have a contract that you can move, like a bigger salary anchor as part of another deal. And I think he'll be expiring next year too. But someone along those lines where it's a shooter who I think is good enough to crack there. Because that's the other thing is it's cool if you could trade two guys that you aren't super heavily relying on. But like you already have too many good players. And so that might exacerbate the issue a little bit. But if I'm the Rockets, like they've been so good as constructed this year and they have the bigger picture in mind. I'm just looking to bring in someone who's not going to cost a ton of equity because the consolidation trade is coming later. And is this someone who stretches the floor and we actually envision him cracking the rotation regularly? And I do believe, though, one of the counters to that would be, all right, if you're giving up non-core assets for a shooter, are you just going to eat into the very few minutes that Reed Shepherd's already playing? Why don't you just play Reed Shepherd more at that point? I think Duncan Robinson, as the example that we're using, definitely has the benefit of just being bigger. So there's that going for him. But I also, when you look at what the team would be like with him in its rotation, I don't know how many minutes he's going to play, but I think for certain matchups, if you need 3-point shooting, they always need 3-point volume and accuracy. Yep. But if you're looking to open up the half court more so on a certain night, you can futz around with his minutes. And that's not the only name out there. They could go after Lindy Waters or something would be the type I'm talking about. I think Duncan Robinson is capable of shouldering the heavier workload, obviously, but that's the scale I'm kind of looking at if I'm them. Would you agree, or would you be more open-minded to if player X or what you deem as the right consolidatory player becomes available that you would go after him?
I would be, again, it has to be the right one, as you say. And I don't know who the right one is. So like, there isn't that one guy who stands out. Well, ironically, there kind of is, but we've already shipped his ass off to San Antonio. Kobe White would be fun on this team too. Like
but at that point he would. And that thinks in terms of too, like we know Fred VanVleet, even if they pick up his team option, he's there next season, he's probably not going to be there that much. So maybe they decline and he comes back on a smaller deal. But yeah, that seems to be the position where if you were really going to go for it, it's can we
Mm-hmm.
just get more of a primary? I won't even say it doesn't have to be a primary scorer, but close to an alpha option who can also
Yeah.
play off the ball.
Yeah. But then, of course, do you envision long term a Kobe White, Jalen Green backcourt? Because probably not, right?
Jalen Green's not. There's
He's
no way
not
he's
along
staying
for
with
this
the team
roster.
long term. And
Yeah, you're
also,
right.
I still don't understand. I guess I understand a little bit from their perspective, but I don't view his extension as eminently true. I kind of view it in the vein of had they remember what the Pacers did with Obi Toppin in restricted free agency? Who was giving him that deal? If you let
Right.
Jalen Green go to restricted free agency, who was giving him even
Yeah.
this deal? I understand the cap hold of it all, but so I'll say this: if the Rockets are going to make any move, however dramatic or nondescript, I am not considering the future of Jalen Green an iota.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So here's a question: Jeff Green, Steven Adams. That's 20.6 million total potential outgoing salary. If you add some draft picks to that, what can you get? I know that that's not a consolidation move. This is just me spitballing the hell out of it.
But technically it could be a 2-for-1. It's just not, when you think consolidation, it's what main part of their rotation are they
Right.
going to move?
But well, maybe there is space for another guy, but like Jeff Green and Steven Adams don't really play a whole lot, obviously. But
And Jeff Green he's kind of like their Garrett Temple, it seems like too. So
yeah. But okay, then it could be Jock Landale for all I care. Like his
I pitched a
contract
Jock Landale trade already.
Yeah, exactly. But like if you combine it with Steven Adams, then you lose a lot of size though, and you have no backup centers left.
Well, I mean, one, I don't hate that just because then you could continue to ratchet up the Jabari at the 5 minutes when Şengün's not on the court. So
Right.
I'll make the Rockets smaller up front if they get some more of those looks.
But like, what can you get though? Like, just to wrap that up, what can you get? What do you think
price,
is?
You think they could get Brook Lopez?
Oh God, I mean that would be funny as hell. Like Milwaukee though, just I don't know what Milwaukee's.
You're not gonna. I mean, I guess you get a little bigger on the wings, but probably they would be. We keep mentioning his name. They'd be an interesting Cam Johnson team, right?
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, but that's almost a cheat code, right? Because virtually any guy who can hit threes at a high rate and play off ball fits for like 90% of all NBA teams. Like, find me a place where Cam Johnson wouldn't be a good fit.
No, but but like for them specifically, because we're talking about he has a little bit of stuff he could do off on the ball, but he's more comfortable working away from the ball, and he probably does just enough defensively that you could view him as being a main part of the rotation. Because yeah, he fits everywhere, but we could say that about a bunch of guys. Would they be? Let's say they fit on the Rockets, but are they good enough to get minutes on this Rockets team because they are so deep? And I think Cam Johnson probably is. Like, if you're not a center, you have to be really good to get minutes on the Rockets right now.
Yeah, that's true.
Would you look at like that? No, that's a stupid. Would you look at maybe trying to upgrade the backup big situation a little bit? Like, what this would be really funny to reunite Ime Udoka with Robert Williams III. What if it's just salary and just bring in Robert Williams and some pick equity, and like that's the route you go? And it's okay. We have Jabari Smith Jr., Alperen Şengün, and RW3. Life is over for the opposing offense.
So I have an idea. It's very ambitious, and he would hate it, the guy who comes in, because he's a starter right now, and he would hate it. It's a lot of money for a guy who's going to be a backup big, but at least you'd know that he'd be there. If you ship off Steven Adams and Jock Landale for Nikola Vucevic, you at least have. I mean, I know. It's 20 million this year. It's like 21, 24.
I understand
you can flip in the summer
a lot in that scenario, and you could use the same.
It should just be that. It should just be the contract of Steven Adams, and maybe it's the Bulls. They didn't even take a pick back for Alex Caruso.
Poor Bulls fans. Oh, shout out to any Bulls fans still listening to this podcast. We love you guys.
Like, look, they didn't even take a pick back for Alex Caruso. Well, look, this is a dump.
No, I'm saying I would make, if I'm the Bulls, I'm just getting off of Vooch for 2 reasons.
Right.
I don't have that final year of his contract. And then this year specifically, you should be worse, which has to be the goal. If you're Houston, I'm not afraid of taking on money just because I'll turn around and trade it, especially if they're going to be on an expiring contract.
Right.
That seems like a terrible allocation of money, though. Like you have, I know Şengün's not making a ton this year, so maybe you consider it, but what does that
And
mean
then you're
for
open to
Jabari?
flipping him in the summer. You could flip Vooch
No,
at
I know,
the,
but
in the
like
summer as well.
immediately, I guess if he's hitting shots like this, I get it. But
Right.
you have Şengün and Jabari Smith. Why are you getting Vooch?
No, and so it was just to illustrate that there is a deal out there. I would feel so much better about it if Vooch was on an expiring. Let me just put it that way. If like this was his last year on his contract,
they probably feel a lot better about his contract.
Right. No, well, then you could argue, hey, give us a couple seconds or something. Like, but I do like the idea of actually giving Houston another offensive option at the 5.
Oh man, you know who? He's a little small though. I was gonna say Norman Powell would be good on this team. I don't think the Clippers should trade him, but that would be
what about last name before we move on? How about trying to figure out a trade for Onyeka Okongwu?
Sure. Like, why you keep trying? They got they're well. So now you're gonna have Jabari Smith Jr. Onyeka Okongwu and Alperen Şengün.
Well, is Jabari long for this roster necessarily?
Again, but don't make any decision that exacerbates that one that you're going to make over the summer.
Fair.
What about, I did mention Kevin Huerter before. I don't know what the cost would be to get him. I don't think the Kings just want your empty salary. So I guess that gets complicated, but he'd be interesting here.
You're about 1 second away from pitching Isaiah Stewart to this team as well, aren't you?
Well, you want them to get a big so badly. That wasn't really what I was targeting, but they have like Amen Thompson's a point guard center, basically. Like, it's just like a hybrid big wing player.
You know what? He's a power forward. He's a real 4. Like you know what he is? He is a 6'6" version of Amari Stoudemire. I finally figured his ass out.
Oh, I don't know that I love that comp. He's
no. Just as a scorer, like when he attacks the rim. Like he's so explosive. He can play some devastating pick and roll basketball when the vision of him is coming in to score. He can do more than Amari. Like when he gets the ball virtually anywhere, he's also a threat to make a pass, make a play. Amari wasn't that. But when it comes to just scoring the rock and attacking the rim, that mindset is 1-to-1.
What do you think about them still trying to get some of the? Would you trade any of like the stuff that you have that's real to try and co-opt even more of the Phoenix Suns draft? If they just came calling, like, who are you giving up if they came with their 2031 first and a salary, whether it's Grayson Allen or I'm not taking back Nurkic if I'm this team, but or if it's a Kobe, the human trade exception,
right? Just basically renting out cap space for the price of picks. Yeah, I do that. I always do that if I'm a team. I don't care if I'm good. Like if I have, expiring contracts
on the roster, are you trading? Are you willing to trade if you're Houston? Because a 2031 first, the player you're sending out probably has to be good.
Oh, okay. So it's an upgrade situation for Phoenix. I thought you were talking about like a salary dump.
Well, so if Phoenix gives up a 2031 first round pick to dump salary and not get any value in return, I'm gonna have questions.
Yeah, right. But I was also weirded out by your question. Now I get what you're asking. So who are they targeting here?
I'm looking at the roster. I don't know. It would have to be Tari Eason, but him and Amen Thompson, you can't.
No. I don't even know what.
Funny to see them own so much of Phoenix's draft for when that Devin Booker trade request invariably comes down the pipeline.
Yeah, Dylan Brooks is earning too much. I don't even know who the player is.
Yeah,
like I'd listen.
Dylan Brooks was earning like matched up with Allen or Nurkic, like then that would be an interesting discussion.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, more of the story is I don't think the Rockets need to think big. And if they are, you save it. I still think you save it for this team is really good. This team is really, really good. But since we're talking about them, I'm going to pick the Phoenix Suns. Here's why they're a second apron team. So for anyone who I'm trying to be like more like less complex about this, they cannot send out multiple players in any trade and they cannot take back more money than they send out. So it has to be a 1-for-1 in which they're taking back the same amount of money or less. That's effectively what they're looking at doing. Do you think they're the team, like when you consider all the teams that are theoretically on the timeline that could, the Lakers, the Suns, maybe you loop the Bucks into there, are they the team that's most likely to trade a 2030 or later, in their case is 2031 first round pick? They have to be the team most likely to do that, right?
Oh, absolutely. So 2 years ago, when I went on the big Iffelumberg trip, I spoke with a lot of Suns people, obviously, and the what I really the thing I took away from that was the draft is just not a priority. It's never been a priority for them. Well, I mean, not never say never. When they won the draft lottery, of course, they were looking at it, but like they don't look at draft picks the same way as the vast majority of NBA teams do. They look at it as a currency to be used, to be spent. They aren't necessarily big on drafting guys. I mean, they did this year. They brought in Ryan Dunn. They brought in Oso Igodora. I mean, so Igodaro. I keep calling him Ogodaro. But like they brought in some guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they brought in some guys, but usually they're very much inclined to not use draft picks. I think right now they kind of needed to because they find themselves in salary hell, so they had to bring in cost controlled assets. So it's a question of the question is, have they matured to the point where they realize the value of draft pick now, or are they still, YOLO, let's spend it? I don't know.
I think I guess it depends on what's out there. You're not just trading it. If you trade that just to get out of the Nurkic contract, again, questions. But if you have the chance to, I think, get a better properly sized wing type in there, or Isaiah Stewart is a really good name. It's just I think in that.
Oh, I haven't heard that this podcast at all, Dan. Great.
What's that?
Great name. I hadn't heard that name all podcast. That's a great name. Isaiah Stewart. Fantastic.
I think what's really difficult for me is that if you're trading Nurkic with your 2031 first and then getting someone back you're going to play, it's almost easier to make that deal. And in theory, you aim a little bit low, because in my head, would you give up 2031 and Nurkic for Isaiah Stewart?
I would not, but I wouldn't need to.
I'm probably with you. And that's what makes this so difficult is so then are you looking to attach 2031 to who that gets you a better player?
No, Grayson Allen. Yeah, Grayson Allen and the pick for Isaiah Stewart. I'd probably do that because it streamlines.
Oh, you're saying Detroit would be the team to say no to that?
No, I'm saying if it's Nurkic, and like if you're spending the pick to get off of Nurkic for Isaiah Stewart, that's a deal where I think they're just relinquishing too much size as is. If you look at this roster, it's super small. Like I had Gerald Bourguet on the podcast I think about a month ago, and he and I just kind of harped on the whole they're not a big team. Like they have so many off guards, they have so many of the small wings. So I just wouldn't even consider the Nurkic trade. I would consider the Grayson Allen plus the pick for Isaiah Stewart. That's the pick, or sorry, that's the trade I would look at.
I don't know that just seems like if I'm Phoenix, I'm not doing that.
Why not?
I understand Grayson Allen's redundant on this team and hasn't had the best year, but like he's a better. I just don't. You can't talk me into. I'd rather trade Grayson Allen in my 2031 pick for a player that I think I could get for Nurkic in my 2031 pick. Now, if you're saying Detroit won't do it, now we can have a different discussion. But I'm just like Grayson Allen to me is still someone who has standalone value. Nurkic does not.
Right, but would you? So let's take the pick out of the equation. Who do you think is the most attractive trade asset here? Grayson Allen or Isaiah Stewart?
Ooh, Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah. So it might not have to be like an unprotected situation here either. Like that again, that's where the currency comes in, right? Like what would you have to add to the Grayson Allen deal to get you Isaiah Stewart? And now we're just putting Yusuf Nurkic on ice here for a second. Let's just focus on Grayson Allen. What would you need to add to Grayson Allen to get Isaiah Stewart in there?
I mean, you need to add your 20. You don't have anything else to add more.
Right. That's the problem, right?
I think it's like you could probably work it because what is Grayson Allen making? He's at 15.6, which actually that's probably right on the nose of Isaiah Stewart, right?
Isaiah Stewart is 15 straight.
But you're not getting anything else back. Detroit's not going to give you, like, they might give you a second back or something. What about doing something like you might not like the influx of players that are coming in this, but I'm doing quick math in my head to see if the money would even work. What about Nurkic and that first for Dorian Finney-Smith and Day'Ron Sharpe?
Yeah, so now it gets interesting because you're adding size. Like, if you just said Dorian Finney-Smith, I would have been like,
I don't. You know
no.
what? I don't even think that's too much money coming back to Phoenix, right? Yeah, Nurkic is only at 18. My God, team is impossible.
Like, they just need size. That's my focus for them. I would like to get them
Well,
some
then why not
size.
do something like, can you just go and get Nick Richards from Charlotte, and now you're aiming
Right.
smaller, where that's where the Josh Okogie salary comes into play.
Oh, wait, there might be a different option here. You said Day'Ron Sharp, right?
Yeah, I
How
mean, he's
about
making $4 million. You could definitely do something like that.
but how if you replace him with Trenton Watford?
For the Suns?
Mhm.
I think I'd want more like heft out of my size.
That's
Like,
fair. I mean, look, he can grab and go. He can play the 4 and the 5. Well, more the 4 than the 5.
well, then
He can
again,
shoot.
yeah.
I don't hate it.
So I mean, if you can just get both of those players for Josh Okogie, but I don't know like how many, like you're not giving up a first in that deal. Larry
No.
Nance Jr. would make sense on this team, but you don't have a good outgoing salary to send for him. They're in a tough spot. Like they need, it feels like either a combo wing or a combo big, or but they probably need both if we're being honest. But
we can't even get Vooch there because they don't have the salary.
You don't want to trade Bradley Beal for? Oh, I do want to throw some cold water on this just because it was reported. Jimmy Butler may want to go to Phoenix. Yeah. Jimmy Butler cannot go to Phoenix. You have to trade Bradley Beal, but like you're not trade like you have to trade. I'm not even looking at the salaries of those players, but you would have to trade one of the big three, and the only member of the big three you would be open to trading is Bradley Beal, and he's at $50.2 million. Bradley Beal's a no trade clause. Why would he sign off on going to a Miami team that no longer has Jimmy Butler? So he's not going to Phoenix. I found that hysterical.
Agreed. That was always very dumb. Be careful. Bernie Lee's going to come after you. He's going to be in the comment section any second now.
I'm going to tell you how much I care about that. I did not even know who Jimmy Butler's agent was until that whole thing happened. So that's the degree to which I care about that.
Yep. That's great. Is
there any other names that stand out for this team?
Like as outgoing?
Just a flyer big somewhere that we're not kind of thinking of. Like, oh, can you just go get Jay Huff right now? Let's do this.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Like, what can you get for Royce O'Neal?
Probably someone who's worse than Royce O'Neal.
Right. Yeah. See, that's the challenge, right? Because
now, if he's your salary though, so a lot of it comes back to you can vary the levels of how attractive your 2031 plus salary offer is. Because if you're giving up Royce O'Neal or Grayson Allen, I'm aiming for a better player in return than if I'm giving up Yusuf Nurkic, as an example.
I don't have I
don't like Walker Kessler on this team, and I'm not giving up 2031 for him. Nobody.
I do think Walker Kessler is becoming a little bit underrated. By the way, I think people are crapping on him a little bit too much recently. But
no, I think I would agree with you. I'm not giving up 2031 for Walker Kessler.
What is Valanciunas on? Valanciunas is on 9.9. Oh, Royce O'Neal at 9.8. See, this is where the new apron just comes in and screws you over.
What about? I don't know if they would do this. And maybe this feels like a bad trade for everybody, so I'm going to propose it. Yusuf Nurkic to Toronto.
Yes.
For and that pick. So Yusuf Nurkic and that pick to Toronto for Akbaji, and you could pick between Olynyk and Chris Boucher.
Yeah, I don't hate that. It's another wing though. It's another wing in there. And another shooting guard. Yeah, and a big, but like Akbaji is good. Like it feels like when he would come to Phoenix, he wouldn't play as much. It'd almost be like negated trade value.
Good point. What about you would have to be, if you're the Hawks, you're saying we're going to keep Clint Capella, we're going to keep Larry Nance. There's probably like mechanisms where Onyeka Okongwu on this team with that 2031 first. You thinking about that?
Yeah, 14 million. Let's see. That's so the Grayson.
So you get Vic Krejci. I'm trying to get Vic Krejci somewhere that's gonna. I mean, he played against the Knicks the other night, but you could probably get someone else from the Hawks because Okongwu was at 14. Nurkic is at 18.1. So
you keep trying to send out Nurkic. Okay, I thought we were still on Grayson Allen.
Well, you could do Grayson Allen too. I mean, if I'm the Hawks, I'm pouncing on. I'm not gonna. Well, pouncing is probably a strong word, but I would certainly consider it.
I mean, you eventually need someone to come in and take over the Bogdanovic minutes, because I have to assume that he soon is going to ask, for a better situation given his age. I have to
Why?
assume that.
The Hawks are playing well right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, he is very competitive. Very, very competitive. He likes the situation. He'll never complain publicly. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a part of him that kind of goes like, all right, eventually I'll have to go to somewhere. And I have heard some rumblings over here that
aggregator alert,
that he might have had some interest in joining up with his best friend in Denver.
Oh wow, he's really that tight with Vlatko Cancar. I didn't know that.
There we go. That was exactly the name. Yeah, that was a good read. Yeah.
So to wrap it up on Phoenix, they'll have options, right, but do you ultimately think they will trade their 2031 pick
for the right?
Well, no, that's not the question. Yes or no? That's a binary, Mort.
Okay. Then I'm going to say no, because I don't think that trade is going to be out there. That's interesting enough.
Most of me agrees with you, but I'm going to manifest an interesting trade deadline and just say yes.
All right. So the Blazers are next.
They are the team. By the way, this ties into the trade deadline. Them and the Heat, I just have like probably the two teams that I have the least feel for in the entire league.
Yeah, same. So here's the thing. I keep getting told that they love DeAndre Ayton. So, and that despite the fact that he's involved in very, very many online trade rumors. I kind of get why they wouldn't pivot off of him so soon, but also they have Donovan Clingan. Eventually, they're going to have to make a call there, given how high they drafted him. Robert Williams is probably the center they're looking to shed. Jeremy Grant doesn't really fit the timeline.
I bet you the center they're looking to shed is DeAndre Ayton.
Well, I mean, again, depending on whether what I've heard is right or wrong, I mean, I don't know. That's just what I've heard. I've heard that they love him. So if that's true, I would consider the possibility that Time Lord is the guy to be moved off. But like, look, that could all be smoke. That could be smoke. They could be sitting there going, yeah, we love DA, and just trying to pump up his value. So we'll see. But like, there are so many movable pieces here. Jeremy Grant doesn't fit the timeline. But by the way, good on Dame to get his boy paid, man. Like, seriously, I love that. Just on his way out, just sign my guy, get him all the money in the world, and then maybe I'll consider staying here. They do that, and he's just like, laters. Love it. It's just masterful play by Dame. But Jeremy Grant, I'm super surprised he's still on the roster. Honestly, I thought they'd trade him over the summer. He's still there.
They love him. That I know.
Yep. They do that. So yeah, no, they like him too.
He has to be more gettable following the Denny Avdia trade, though, I would think. And like Tamani Kamara has become so integral to everything they do that I would think Jeremy Grant is more gettable than ever.
I definitely think they're listening to offers for virtually everyone here. I mean, the thing for me, right, and I keep falling back on this, is they don't have, that guy. They thought Scoot Henderson would be that guy. We're, a year and a half soon-ish into his career. So far, nothing suggests he's going to be that guy. I don't mean to be like a negative about it, but like, has he shown anything that makes you suggest he's ever going to be that guy? So I don't think there's any player currently on the roster where you just kind of go, oh yeah, this is like a lock. This guy is just maybe Clingan, but
no, like, I think Donovan Clingan's really good, and I missed on him. He was not a draft pick that I thought was smart. I was clearly wrong. But that's just not the player you build around. I think Shaedon Sharpe probably has the best portfolio type of right now, but I don't think either he or Scoot has shown nearly enough to drive offense for both themselves and everybody else in an efficient manner. And that's what makes them really difficult, because also, Mort, I think we can point to names and say anyone on their roster should theoretically be gettable, lockdown Clingan. I think Tamani Kamara's just so cheap that, if someone overwhelmed you with an offer, you listen on anyone. So there are players I don't think you give up on Scoot, and definitely don't give up on Shaedon Sharpe, who I think will still be an excellent player and is an excellent player. But I think they probably need to be more open-minded than they ultimately will be. And I'm just wondering if part of that is because, what are you targeting? How much appeal for a roster that already has so many dudes, does future draft picks have for you when your most valuable draft pick is always going to be your own anyway?
No, like, are you asking me whether they should go out and prioritize draft picks? Because I think they should. Yes, like, even if they have
That's
their
the
own.
default. It's just, and then you also, if you're doing that by trading for guys that really aren't going to play, you simplify and streamline some of your rotation. I'm
Right.
just who are you itching to move though in exchange for draft picks? I know a lot of people have singled out Anthony Simons. I think if this team was to target an archetype that they need, it's just caps lock shooting. And so, yeah, his percentage is, I think he's around 32% this year. But like as a threat level, as someone that's drawing like defenses out, they need more of those types of guys.
Right.
But you're also at a phase where that's why I found the Denny Avdia trade weird, just because you see this team giving up future draft equity to bring in this player who he's starting to find himself on offense. I think he's been good defensively as a rebounder, still really physical, can get up the floor. But they confuse the hell out of me.
I actually like the trade. I like that trade for
I didn't
one
hate
reason.
it. I'm just saying it was weird. This team is weird.
It is weird, but I like the trade because of his contract. I mean, look, they got him on what is probably a top 5 quality contract based on his production last year. Like, we didn't see I don't want to say decline. We didn't see the slump or whatever we want to call it this year. Okay. Last year, we saw a guy average 15, 7, and 4 on decent percentages on a team that was pretty bad. I thought it was noteworthy that he was able to sustain those percentages and that efficiency on a team that was so bad. So I bought into it. I bought into like the playmaking for upside. If he's not that guy, then yes, you're right. Then that was a poor trade.
I don't think it was a poor trade. I think it was a weird trade. And I would ask you now, and I won't deliver a verdict on this trade specifically for I've talked about it. We'll continue to talk about it, but this is something that we're going to look back on like 2-3 years down the line and have to wonder see how it panned out. If you traded Denny Avdia right now, are you getting a lottery pick plus a distant first round pick and then salary filler that is as good or as appealing insofar as he's even appealing as Malcolm Brogdon?
Well, okay, so that's it. It depends on what kind of player you're looking at here. Like, are you talking about Denny Avdia in the way that he's played this year, or are we talking about like?
My point is they value Denny Avdia, which I think again it's not unforgivable. I'm not even saying it was wrong. They valued him like he is going to be part of the bedrock upon which they build.
Right. And look, I could see the pathway to that last year, couldn't you?
I could, but we laud what his contract is in terms of team friendly, but by the time the Blazers are good, that deal is no longer going to be team friendly because he's not going to extend off it. You have to deal with his. So again, I don't think it was the wrong move. I think Denny Avdia still is one of the more underrated basketball players in the NBA.
Right.
I just found it curious, and it makes it harder for me to discern what I think this team will do at the deadline. If I had to guess, at minimum, I think they trade like a reserve wing type. Maybe we see Matisse Thybulle go on the move, and I think they'll move one of their bigs. That's not Donovan Clingan, but that big, it might just be Duop Reith. That, by the way, there's like those teams. Any team that needs a big, just call about Duop Reith.
Yeah, that's true. No, he can play. We saw it last year. He has not played a lot this year, but like there's a player in there. I think
he's like this. Well, this is like, I guess this is like this. He's like the straight to DVD rim protecting floor spacing center.
Yeah, he is. Yes, he is. And there's worth in that for sure. As to just wrap up the after thing, I think what really screwed them over on everything is they were hoping for a big year 2 of Scoot. They were hoping that rookie season was just,
Well, he showed signs, to be fair, for like the latter half. And I don't know how much of his rookie season was messed up by like the ankle injury he started with.
Right.
I still find it curious though that like he's mostly come off the bench still this season. And maybe I'm assuming that's not the plan long term. And he's missed a bunch of games recently and only played in 2, both of which he came off the bench for. Again, this team is weird. It's just weird to me. You know who's been good for them though? Delano Banton. If I'm a team, they might just want to pay him at this point. But if I'm a team and I got seconds to spare, like that's a name that I'm circling.
Yeah.
So I have 2 questions for you about this team. Who is the player that you think is most likely to be traded? The one player. We'll start there because then I have a separate question.
I think it's Jeremy Grant.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it should be. I feel like it's Robert Williams III. Or, I mean, honestly, the answer is Duop Reith. but but
But when we're talking about like players who are, playing.
yeah. So Jeremy Grant's money I don't think he's on a terrible deal. I do know that people around the league still view it as a net negative deal, but it's not, I don't think it's aged any worse than it looked in the moment. It's just, I feel like for non-stars, we don't see someone with such massive salaries moved mid-season that often. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. My follow-up question though, to that was, of the players that you consider likely to be traded, so not a Shaden Sharp, not Scoot, not Klingon,
Right.
who could they get the most for in a trade? Is it Jeremy Grant or is it someone else?
Shaden Sharp.
No, I said, so you think they would move him?
No. You were asking, didn't you ask me what you think? What player of the non-movers who
no,
they
of
could
the
get
ones
the
that
most
could
for?
get moved. I meant I named.
Oh,
the
that
ones
could
I would
get
exclude.
moved. Okay, my apologies. Then I didn't understand the question. That's
Is
a
it
really good
weird?
point.
I guess
Simons, I
weird that
guess. Simons, I think could
Yeah.
because he's just so seamless a fit virtually everywhere.
and he's young. Is he
And
26?
he's young.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. 25, 26, somewhere along those area.
So he's actually I don't know that he's this is an age 25 season. I think he's my answer for the most trade value. I honestly, I feel like because there are some teams that are just in need of bigs, and I know Robert Williams has been playing lately. I think I view him as the player most likely to get traded. But maybe, look, if Klingon is still injured at that point, I know he's supposed to be back. Or did he already return? What was his status? I couldn't remember.
I mean, look, even if he's playing right now, he's a walking injury. And I think that's what teams are very, very aware of. Like they know that you can't rely on Robert Williams to play a lot of games. You can't.
And
I think there are certainly some level of hesitancy there.
I didn't mean to talk over you there. Klingon is day to day at the moment, so he's been upgraded. So yeah, he didn't return. I haven't remembered.
No, all good.
Him. But yeah,
like,
if he's back, I think it makes, because right now it's you kind of need, not that you need, but like Robert Williams is serving an even bigger purpose than he would if you had Klingon and Ayton and himself all available at once.
We'll see. I mean, it's a team that definitely needs to do something. I think we might disagree on where they land specifically, but this is a team that needs to do something.
I hope whatever they do brings in some shooting too. I'm not saying view that as the primary inbound value. I think you're right with the draft picks. I'm going to set the over-under, though, of all the tradable names at 1.5 of being moved. Are you taking the over or the under? So at least
1.5.
You're saying, is it at least two players of the ones that you think they consider being traded get moved, or is it?
I'm going to say under. I'm going to say under. It's going to be one guy, I think.
Again, I'm just going to go counter, even though I don't believe it, and say over. Manifesting
that's fine. Yeah.
Nice trade.
Look, I would love that. I'm hoping for over because that would make for a more entertaining trade deadline. Give me trades, man. Yeah, absolutely.
My turn to pick. I'm going to go with, let's be masochists. The New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah, I had a feeling you'd go there.
So, man, they are. I have been so high relative consensus on the Pelicans entering each and every season, and I just don't learn my lesson. It's like me betting the Grizzlies under when fewer than 12 players are injured.
Right.
Like they're just going to clear the over unless their entire roster is abducted by aliens for the most part. Now, I don't know what to make. Like, what are you supposed to do? Here's what I'll say. This is what you absolutely shouldn't do at the trade deadline. Attempt to salvage this season. It is over.
Correct.
You are cooked.
Yes.
Like you're screwed. Like this year, it's over.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
You need to do this is just, I don't want to hear what aggravates me so much about them is that they've repeatedly done these, I would call them half measures, even if you think they're smart measures, like the DeJounte Murray trade, but they've constantly viewed themselves as we're building around Zion Williamson, but in the image of a team that can coexist without him. And by attempting to do that, not only have they failed on a number of occasions to exist without Zion Williamson, but they've assembled what is a very counterintuitive roster, even at full strength. You could talk yourself into a lot of elements of what they have, but there's always just so many functional trade-offs and oddities that it's confusing as hell. And even now, this season, they're second to last. Last time I checked, I should probably recheck that, in rim and three frequency. So this is just a team that even at full strength, I don't think is ever built to be the best version of itself. So now you go into this trade deadline, and I think the actual move is just get whatever you can from Brandon Ingram to take this idea that you could extend him and delay what feels like an inevitable trade.
Yep.
Even if you think the number is more palatable this offseason. Just this should have been made. The decision on Brandon Ingram should have been made already. It should have happened at the latest over the offseason. And so I really do think that they screwed up there because I don't know what value they thought they were going to get back from him in a trade. And then from there, you need to work your way back and say, well, what are we trying to do from here? We know we're going to get a high draft pick this year from our own draft pick stash. Are we continuing to try and move forward with, I guess, Zion and Trey and Herb and DeJounte Murray and Yves Missi, who's emerged as your core? Or more, should they be thinking more nuclear than that? But are they even in a position to think more nuclear and say, well, we're going to take steps back? Who's trading for CJ McCollum or Zion Williamson at this point? So even that feels unrealistic.
So I wrote a major article over at Yahoo basically saying Zion Williamson is the toughest player to build around in the league. And I still firmly believe that because of the archetype that he is. This team should blow it to bits. Like there should be, I'm going to reverse engineer this in a way. There are 3 players currently on the roster who I think should be, locked in as guys you want to retain. I'm not saying you should build around them, but like Yves Missi, Herb Jones, and Trey Murphy are the 3 guys that I want to roll into next season. And I'm very open to Jordan Hawkins as well. So like 3 to 4. Everyone else is fair game. Like you can get something for Deontay during the summer. I'm not sure what you can get for CJ. I'm not sure what you can get for Zion. I agree with you on the Brandon Ingram. Just get him out of there as soon as possible, preferably this trade deadline. Like you, I'm at that point where whatever you can get is more or less fine because then he can start his new career elsewhere. If you can get some level of draft capital in, take it. Like, I'm not even looking at how can we improve the course of this roster for this year. No, screw that. You have entered into one of those situations where you have to think 3 years down the line. Whatever move they make now and throughout the course of the offseason, it can't be with the mindset of within the next 12 months or 24 months. It has to be 36 months, 48 months. They have to look long term. So nuclear option for virtually every single player on this roster outside of the guys that I outlined before. Just blow it all to bits.
Do you think that's realistic to do, though? Because most of these guys that you're trading would be at close to the nadir of their value. I mean, CJ McCollum's probably the closest to not being at the nadir, but his contract is so people don't love it. I didn't hate it when they signed him to it, and I still don't think it's some albatross, and he's done a very good job like over the past couple seasons of upping his 3-point volume. I just don't, I understand the blow it to smithereens slant for sure. I just don't know if that's actually feasible.
No, and see, that's the challenge, right? I mean, you can't do it over the course of just this trade deadline. This trade deadline for them is sort of like a little bit of a moot point. Like Brandon Ingram is the guy I think they should pivot off this trade deadline. And then it's going to be the summer. It could be that they just say, screw it. Like we'll not make any moves. We'll just play it out. And then we make everything happen in the summer. Brandon can leave, whatever. But I mean, I would try my best before this trade deadline to make something happen. And then I'm just going to push it to summer because they're going to lose regardless. Like I'm not afraid of Zion or an Ingram suddenly returning and suddenly they're playing, 65 basketball. That's not going to happen. Like they're not going to play 650 basketball the rest of the year. It's never going to happen. They're not going to play 500.
Zion's still out. Brandon Ingram just got injured. And that might make a Brandon Ingram trade tougher.
Yeah.
This team's in a rough spot. They do have options, at least, like their asset stash isn't stale. It's just even if you could blow it to smithereens, it's still a tough call. Like, let's just say they could get deals lined up for McCollum and Ingram that they like. It's tough to make that call because then you've decided, okay, are we quasi rebuilding? Is the plan to rejigger around Zion for next year? Is he going to be, are we hoping he comes back and builds up his trade value so we can move over the offseason?
It's done. No, it's done. It's done. It's done, man.
It's I don't think you can't make a Zion Williamson trade now. I would
No, you can't. And look, if we're being honest, can we even make that in the summer?
Because I tend to be higher on Zion Williamson than majority. So I'm just like, at this point, he's not ruining any tank because he's either hurt all the time. And then it's like, but if you do ever get like a transcendent Zion for just 57 games plus the playoffs, like you could do some real damage. So I don't have answers for this team. That's why I think they're a team to watch, but I don't expect them to be, they're not going to buy. And if they do, that'll be malpractice. I just don't think they're going to be the sellers that people expect them to be. And so do you think they trade? Is Ingram the most likely player to be traded just because of the contract situation, or no?
Yes, I would think so, just to see if you can get anything out of him. Absolutely, like with a bullet.
Do you believe that they will move at least one of him or McCollum by the deadline?
Yeah, see, now you're putting me on the spot. Like, yes, I do think.
What is CJ shooting from 3 this year? I know he was 31, under 32%. Yeah,
31. Oh, CJ is like at like 31, I think. Last time I checked, 31.4. Also, I will say this works.
He has the second highest 3-point percentage on his team. That's so funny.
Yeah. And look, even though he takes like 6 attempts per game, like he's still very low on like the threes and layups. Like he's still a lot of twos. But I will say
they are second to last in rim and threes, by the way. We just talked about the Kings. Only the Kings are lower than them, and it's by a preposterous amount, by the way. But
not surprised. So CJ, I want to just wrap up CJ here because he's got a very good reputation within the league. Like he is a standout locker room guy, great teammate, and he's one of those guards who can play like the 1 and 2. So I wouldn't be shocked if they do find a taker for him this summer. I don't think they find it now because like right now, especially with the aprons active and everything, just finding a spot for a guy who's going to earn, 30.6 million next year and 33.3 this year, that's not going to be easy. But I do think they can move him in the summer. I do think that there are teams out there that value who he is and what he gives you. So I don't think I think he's very unlikely to get traded here at the trade deadline. Brandon seems like the only one. Just like squeeze everything you can out of that contract.
I just don't have the team for Brandon Ingram. I've gone through that exercise a bunch. I thought the Heat might be like a flyer on there, but now if they're looking to trade Jimmy Butler, that's going to be a non-starter.
Can I? So here's the thing. This surprised me. I've had a couple Pels fans, like who I speak to occasionally, reach out and just basically ask about Zion's future. This isn't trade deadline related, but it was like they were basically telling me, you know what? I would just let him go. I would just let him walk. And I'm just like, that's super aggressive. And then they hit me back with, but what trades are out there? And like, I'm kind of stumped. I'm not going to say that I agree with letting him walk, like just wave his ass. I'm not there. But I also think it's a reasonable counter. Like, what the hell type of deal is out there for him?
I don't know. But at that point, even let's just say there's no trade out there for him right now. What do you gain by just letting him go? You're not using that money to hit home runs in free agency from there, assuming you even open up cap space when Trey Murphy's extension is going to kick in and you have CJ on the books to maybe get him off too. So I would rather just now he could be viewed as a salary anchor in a trade. Maybe he comes back next season, plays well enough to where he ups his trade value. The thing I want to say, but I can't, like, we weren't prepared to talk about Zion Williamson trades. I still bet they would get 2 first-round picks for him. I don't know that they'd be elite, but you don't think a team would just, especially if they have like some extras to spare, would just say fuck it and try it? Maybe I'm idealizing.
The Hornets would do it in an instant.
They technically don't even own this year's first-round pick, even though they do, because it's lottery protected before it turns into 2 seconds. But
no, but then future, like they would do it. That would be
LaMelo and Zion building your team around them would be
Who, like, honestly, who cares about the Hornets outside of Hornets fans? No one. At least this would get them on the radar a little bit. Like, this is a team that's
I feel like that sells Hornets fans short. Some of our best standalone, when we do standalone team content, has been the Hornets stuff. People care. They have Cody Martin. He's the best basketball player in the world.
All right, fair enough. I'm not seeing
a lot of Discord, which is basically just like a Cody Martin
fan. Okay.
Fest.
All right.
I don't know why I had to go.
That's very niche though. That's very niche. But I'm saying I would be shocked if the Hornets weren't like, oh.
Well, here's my thing is like the Hornets picks would be too valuable to give up 2 if I'm Charlotte. Like I bet you they would give up Tijon Salon and a first. Plus, I bet you they would do that.
I think there are some Pelicans fans that would take that.
Really? Wow.
I think there are.
Well,
Like based on my interactions with people. Again, fans. I want to reemphasize that fans, not decision makers, fans. But there are absolutely fans out there who are like totally fed up with this thing, just like to the point where I don't care.
I get it. I blame the organization more than I do Zion at this point.
Yeah, agree. Oh, agreed. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. But the thing is, if you keep him though, that's the thing, Dan. This is the challenge. If you keep Zion around, you sort of still have to build around him from an on-court perspective because he's not a guy. No, well, I mean, you kind of do because you have to factor in lineups with him on the floor, and he's so difficult to play around.
So here's what I'll say. He's very unique and a specific talent. I 100% agree with that. And I think also, and this is a compliment, your take is rooted kind of in the reality, but they have him under contract. He has not been healthy. If they decide to make him a glorified reserve who's not going to impact just the makeup, they can do that.
That's fair.
So,
yeah, that's true.
But what I will say is, I understand that he's a specific talent. You have never once said, let's surround him with as much rim protection and floor spacing as possible. I'm not even saying from the same player because we know that those are like, they're real unicorns. Name the players who fit the bill of plus rim protectors and real floor spacers. The list is very short. You have never, ever committed to that. You've never even put yourself in a position to have the kind of personnel. Maybe that was the plan with DeJounte Murray this season, to where it's, wow, how many screens did Zion Williams set? To where it's like, we're trying to figure out how to get him moving or used without the ball. I accept what you're saying, and it's definitely rooted in fact, but I reject this notion that the Pelicans have done a good enough job attempting to properly build around Zion.
Agreed.
That we could even say that. And I think they got caught up in, look, I understand the temptation there. They were trying to juggle too many different agendas because we want Zion to be a big part of our team, but we can't count on him to be there. And so that's why Brandon Ingram is important. That's why a CJ McCollum's important. That's why DeJounte Murray's important. That's why it took so long. Remember how long it took? Like, it happened we know by now, but like, it even took up until some point last year for them to just say, okay, yeah, we'll put the ball in Zion's hands and let him go. Like, there was, even when he come back from injury, there was always this, like, maybe we should vary up the pecking order a little bit. So the one thing I will say, just to go back to it, I don't even think I'll listen to it. I will entertain any argument that is made genuinely and without making fun of the size of my nose. And even maybe the latter I'll listen to. I don't think you could sell me on any universe in which it makes sense to just let Zion Williams.
No. I agree. I'm not a proponent of that either. I found it interesting that some members of the fan base are there. That was like one of those whoa moments for me, because I didn't think that it was that bad, but I've seen it and I've heard it, and it's like, whoa, that they were pretty far along. To your point about Zion, I think you hit it right on the head there in terms of they had to balance building around Zion with the fact that his lack of availability, right? Yep. And I think nowadays availability has become such a huge element that if you have a guy who you just don't know could miss half a season or a full season any given time, like, you can't trust Kawhi, you can't trust Joel Embiid, you can't trust Zion Williamson in that sense. They're great players, and I'm emphasizing great because they truly are when they're healthy and in shape and everything. But if they're only playing 40% of their games, eventually you'll have to make a tough ass call. And I understand why Pels fans and even the Pels themselves might be thinking about, hey, let's actually maybe lean in towards availability, consistency, something else.
Yeah.
I will say this to wrap it up: if they win the lottery and they go Cooper Flag, that at least gives them a legitimate argument to just start over. But that'd be fun as hell. They'd go from Anthony Davis, a big man, a big man power forward there, to Zion Williamson, a pseudo power forward / center, and then again to Cooper Flag with 3 firsts. That would be amazing. I would love that, just for the storytelling of it all.
Their offseason, I think, is going to be, their trade deadline will be interesting because of the Brandon Ingram of it all.
Right.
Their offseason, even if he's gone, is going to be so fascinating. If he's still, imagine they don't trade him. Think about how interesting their offseason is then.
Right. Oh yeah. No. They're on my short list there.
Mort, We only have 2 teams left, and you only have 1 pick left. Who are you going to go with?
So I think it's either the Warriors or the Lakers. Definitely a California team. And you know what? I'm tired of talking about the Lakers, so I'm just going to go into the Warriors here.
You want to talk about the
Eh,
Kings again instead? We had some fun
Oh
there.
yeah, that's fun. Yeah, no, yeah, that's true. No, I want to go to a different part of California. Look, I'm not sure what this team really is, but it seems like they are constantly in the rumor mill to make a significant upgrade. I don't know for them what constitutes a significant upgrade, but I'm interested. Like the Anthony Melton is out for the rest of the year. He's at 12.8 million. It's dead money, but he's on an expiring. Some teams would actually find that interesting if they can get off long-term money. Gary Payton Jr. or Gary Payton the second, of course, is also on an expiring. They don't really know what's going to happen with Jonathan Kuminga. Like he's going to be a
Did you
restricted
see?
free.
I'm sorry, because the Warriors are the king of the ramp up leaps,
Right.
leaks. Excuse me. Do you remember the James Wiseman ramp ups? And then they
Mhm.
basically Brian Windhorst, who I love Windy, but he reported that this was not verbatim, but he basically reported that the Warriors are ramping up to make a decision on whether they're going to keep or trade Zion Williamson. It was just so. Excuse me, Jonathan Kuminga. Not Zion. Yeah, maybe the Warriors trade for Zion.
I was about to say that'd be interesting. That'd be interesting. No, but yeah. So, what do you think about Kuminga? Is he a long-term fit there, or is he just are we kissing him goodbye?
This is hopefully Grant doesn't listen to the episodes that he's not on too often. I still don't see it with Kuminga, and I think he needs to be too heavily featured to make his best impact. And maybe the Warriors don't have enough spacing to explore the full breadth of what he does as a complementary offensive option. I don't
Right.
see it enough consistently from him at either end of the floor, and especially on defense, to say this is someone that can he be on a team and a good team? Absolutely, because I think the
Yep.
Warriors are a good team. I think they're better than a lot of people expected. You look at the defense, 6th allowed in points per possession when D'Anthony Melton hasn't played a ton. When you look at how small they are, they're 4th in points allowed per possession, 6th in defensive rebounding without even being that huge. I think Draymond Green, the job he does defensively is still just so underappreciated for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Just with Kuminga, I'm not saying I'm actively looking to move him, but if it's
Right.
you need to pay, they offered him reportedly between 25 and 30 million dollars. I don't feel comfortable paying Jonathan Kuminga that yet, based off anything I've seen this season. I know he had the great run to close last year. The preseason, you might have been able to convince me on it when he was just bombing and making threes, just like the rest of the team. So I think what this team needs, and then it spills into, yes, he should be available. They still need, to me, a number 2 option. And I think they've shown, though, what's interesting, because this isn't a novel concept. I think what is new about them is that they have shown their defense is so good and that their rotation is so deep that they, one, maybe have more players to spare than you initially thought. But my other thing is, I can't name an exact archetype of player that they need to go after, but I think that they've now made their possibilities less finite because there's more options there to where I think they're good enough. Like, I'll use this as an example. I think it's one that we've used in the past. I'm not saying this should be their primary target, but if you ended up with Norman Powell or Anthony Simons, I think that's enough to say you add that type of offense into this equation.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, maybe the Warriors are good enough, because I really think the thing that they need to do, Steph is going to be on the court in the regular season. You're going to have an offense that rates in the 90 to 99th percentile. When he is off, they're in like the 4th percentile. You want someone who can bring that number up a little bit. And then you want someone who can at least steal minutes alongside Steph during the playoffs, where I'm not saying Steph is less valuable, but defenses are going to force you to have your supporting cast make more decisions. And so you need that second, I'll say, from scratch creator or shot maker, however you want to frame it. So yeah, do I think they should be a Jimmy Butler team depending on the asking price? Absolutely. Do I think that they should be a Zach LaVine team if the price had dropped low, where it's just money? Yeah, I would like Zach LaVine on this team, but I think that they've opened up the world where Steph is still clearly good enough to be the best player on a contender, that you can go get someone who is good enough to be, let's say, a regular season second option and can at least scale a little bit to the playoffs and still be mostly fine. And that's why, before I throw it back to you, I I, as a Warriors fan, and just as I'm not a Warriors fan. If I was a Warriors fan, but just as someone who covers the league and wants teams to actualize the best possible versions of themselves, I will be absolutely livid if this trade deadline goes by and they do jack shit. And I recognize that the market has a lot to do with it because we can't identify the one player. Go out and get that guy. Because look, even with Jimmy Butler, and you say the same thing with any like a Zach LaVine salary player, do you really want to give up Andrew Wiggins with what he's done this season, where he's spacing the floor, playing good defense? With Jimmy Butler, it's probably easier to make that call, even though Butler doesn't necessarily stretch the floor. You want his creation. But like, there are tough decisions to make. I just think that there are enough potential upgrades out there, even if it's not the star, that this team has established it is good enough, decent enough. It needs to think in those immediate terms.
Is that player Brandon Ingram?
Again, if you're telling me the salary, if you're telling me the cost is Wiggins, Melton, and something, is it Moses Moody you're putting in there? Is it a protected first round pick? If that's the maximum cost, I would try it, just because what Brandon Ingram does is not very Warriors-y, but it's definitely something that would help them during the non-Steph minutes and in the playoffs, I think.
Right. And there's also the component that guys seem to gravitate towards Steph Curry to the point where I wouldn't rule out a change in shot diet for Brandon Ingram if he becomes a Warrior. Like, I know that he's like, you know, a MIDI lover, you know, wants to be a Kobe disciple and all that. Yeah, that came out wrong. You know what I mean?
A MIDI lover is the Chicago Bulls. Well, they're a bottom of the MIDI lover. They're like the bottom of the middle.
And well, they upped their threes this year, though.
Yeah, the Bulls. By the way, we troll the Bulls a lot. They've been entertaining to watch this year.
They have.
Only the Grizzlies play faster. Like, they're fun.
They actually improved their shot profile, but they did it in the worst possible timing. Like, it doesn't make sense that they did it now. But like,
yeah, Vooch decides to have the most efficient season of his career. Yeah,
of his career right now, it just makes no sense. Vooch, by the way, an interesting option for the Warriors, and I'm not even kidding. I don't hate that type of upgrade for them at the center spot.
So I guess you can get to that money without giving up Brandon Ingram. Excuse me. I'm just assigning players to the Warriors. They have Zion,
right. Yep.
Brandon Ingram. Pelicans apparently too. Would the Warriors trade Herb Jones to get Vooch? Is the question. So for real though, so Vooch's money is at around like 20 million. So you could get there with Melton, other contracts, and keep Wiggins. So if you could do that, but what is the other money going out? Because I think they need Gary Payton.
Well, that might be the sacrifice that they have to make.
I'm not.
Okay. So how about this? Like, we need to expand and trade. Is there any way that they can then get Torrey Craig in return to sort of alleviate the loss of Gary?
Well, yeah, that would be. I don't think that would be hard at all.
Right. Would that do it for you?
Consider. I know he's had a good year, but like using Kevon Looney as the filler there instead of GP2.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, sure, if it works. It could be. Let's see. Kevon Looney's at 8. And Melton
at 12-8. That should work.
Yeah, and because Vooch is at a straight 20.
Honestly, I hate this because he's such like an idiosyncratic player, and he's had some like really interesting stretches for them. But if you're getting Vooch, you are eliminating your need for Kyle Anderson, right? So you could throw him in there.
Yeah. You could.
So if it's Melton and then take your pick of the non-Wiggins play, I think you could talk me into GP2 as well, but I really think they need what he brings in the absence of Melton.
The larger point here is then you won't have to give up Wiggins. That's kind of my point here. The fact that you can get there.
Kudos to Andrew Wiggins, by the way. We wouldn't be having this discussion a few months ago, and now it's, well, how can the Warriors figure out how to keep him?
I want to say that something about that, by the way. I found the constant criticism last year just hurled at Wiggins so distasteful, because it was reported early on that there was, a family emergency, and there was like, he was going through it, and everyone were like, no, he's washed, he's done, he's not this, he's not that. Like, it was the perfect example of when people forget that basketball players are humans too. And his father unfortunately passed, and you can see that him getting closure on that allowed him to return to his workplace and actually perform at the level that he expects of himself. So kudos to Wiggins for also just having the patience and the wherewithal to actually block out all the stupid shit from the outside and focus on himself and now focus on hoops. I think that just he earned so many points with me for being able to do that. That's so
There's
good on him.
yeah, there's definitely time where lines are crossed, but I also would point out everybody deals with stuff and still has to do their job and is going to get
Of
critical.
course.
And especially when you don't have they weren't as open about it. Like this was all kind of known within league circles, but and
Right.
he's entitled to his privacy. I get why fans could be frustrated with his play, but there's a point where you go when you're attacking players personally, it's just never okay.
Right.
So I totally agree with that.
And that was the thing. It bothered me a lot. Again, people were throwing him into trades all the time, like and calling him washed and he'll never return. And it was too much. So I'm loving this season from him. I'm loving you're seeing the passion that he plays with. So I think kudos to you as well for saying, hey, let's try to find a way to keep Andrew Wiggins here. Because I think he loves being in Golden State and playing next to Steph. He certainly looks like it. So
if you love playing next to Steph, I very much am going to question your like general IQ. I'm sorry.
Right. Exactly. No, it's a fair point. It's a fair point. So if you can hang on to Steph, to Wiggs, to Draymond, and you can add a guy like Vooch. I mean, I know he's not the guy you talked about as the second option, and I fully understand that.
You could run stuff through him, though.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can run high post, low post. You know, he can give you roughly 18, 20 points per night. I mean, I don't hate it in the aggregate production of the Warriors.
Do you like it better than the idea of, because then this does cost you Wiggins, unless you're really going like, what, 4 or 5 for 1. Do you like him in Golden State more than you like Zach LaVine?
No, I mean, Zach LaVine would be just ridiculous, but like...
Well, do you make that trade, though? Like, you could figure out a way to keep GP2, but like you're going to have to give up
a lot.
No, you're going to have to give up Andrew Wiggins as the player that we were identifying as.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a very different cost benefit analysis there, because Wiggins is more plug and play, but LaVine gives you the better spacing and the better creation. Your defense is going to suffer, but you have the depth to pick that up. And then, of course, there's LaVine's contract. And if you're going to pay Kuminga, you might not want that on your books, but I think LaVine would help out Golden State quite a bit.
Oh, he would. LaVine has become drastically underrated, and that's a drum that I've been banging for years now. He's really good. He is, offensively speaking. I feel as though you need to put him next to an elite player, like truly elite player, because he's never had that. He's never had that.
Do you think, in terms of if they're not thinking, well, I guess one of these names would be like, could you see them doing like sort of a contingency plan where it's, okay, we're using Melton to get Dennis Schroeder for the rest of the year?
Oh, like a stopgap. Would that work? Let's see, because they're 533,000 under the first apron.
Yeah, it would have to be like a dead match. I thought Schroeder was making less than 12.8, but maybe I'm wrong.
He's making a little bit more. I think it's 13 something. I don't remember the. Yeah. So like,
wait, I have him. My spreadsheet has Dennis Schroeder at 13. It would just work.
Yeah, it would just work. It would.
You're welcome.
Well, that's interesting. That is interesting. What do the Warriors have to relinquish additionally? Like seconds?
Well, they could also give out other money. Like, would you give up? I'm not giving up Kuminga in that deal, and I'm probably not giving up a first for Schroeder.
No, but like seconds, right? Do they have seconds? I don't even know. Do they have?
Yeah,
seconds?
they have some seconds they could give up. Would you consider giving up? No, not as. I mean, they never use them though. I know he got hurt, but Moses Moody, like, is that if you could structure the deal where he's?
I mean, he's a poison pill status. We need to.
Yeah, but his is like it counts as 10.5 for the net.
Yeah,
so like you could.
You're right.
It's easily workable.
It is. You're right. Yeah, because he's earning less than 6 million next, $6 million more on his deal next year, so that's definitely manageable.
Oh, here's another name.
Yeah.
What do you think about Colin Sexton for this team?
Oh, that's a good shout. Colin Sexton gets talked about too little in terms of as a trade candidate.
That dude he can obviously shoot, but when he gets going downhill, he is such an underrated playmaker.
He puts pressure on a defense. So that's D'Anthony Melton and what?
Probably need another 6 million. How much is he making? 18?
18.
I don't know that I ever thought I was going to talk about Colin Sexton on the Golden State Warriors. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, but that'd be fun. He makes 18.3.
So you need another like 5 million going out from Golden
Right.
State then. So that's Kevon Looney. You have GP2. You're probably
Yeah.
not trading Kyle Anderson in that.
Right.
That's where
So
it gets
that's
tough. You look at a lot of these players and you say they're not necessarily expendable. And so it's, do you want to give up if you're Golden State? Okay, D'Anthony Melton, I guess relinquishing his non-bird rights is kind of a bummer. But if you get into the conversation of, well, do you want to give up Slow-Mo or GP2 or Kevon Looney to get a Colin Sexton? Honestly, I don't think they do this for it alone, but you could probably work with Utah where if it's Moody and Melton, like that probably is framework that would work or come close to it.
Who would you go for if you're the Golden State Warriors? Do you go for Colin Sexton or Nikola Vucevic?
I'd go for Colin Sexton, personally. I know him and Steph would be small, but you already, I guess you trust Vooch to he'll help float your defensive rebounding into the playoffs, but look at how well a lot of their bigs have played this year. When you look at Looney, you look at Draymond, even TJD, and I say bigs, even though they're all undersized.
Right.
I think I'd prefer Sexton. What about you?
I'm torn. I'm honestly torn because I do think size in today's NBA has become more of a factor than it has been recently. And I love Colin Sexton. He's 6'1". He's a small dude, but he's explosive as hell, supremely underrated. I could see, I need to bring out the yellow legal pad and just go pros and cons for a day before I really make my mind up there. My intuition says Vooch, but I could absolutely see a world wherein overall, it's a really good question, Dan. I don't know. Sexton or Vooch, both of them would be an upgrade. So it's dealer's choice.
I know we said we were going to wrap this up. Can I just ask you, is there forget about I'm not talking about one of the top 10 players, but is there just a name, whether they're going to become available actually or not, that you actually view would be as an ideal get for the Warriors? Because Butler might be realistic. I don't know if you'd call him ideal. I think he definitely helps them. Is there you look at and if you said you thought it was Giannis, that's fine. If you think that's the level of type of player they need, that's what I struggle most with the
Anthony
Warriors.
Davis.
Really? That's not going to help your offense without Steph at all. I don't think he's been driving more, but.
Well, I mean, he's leveling it up with the defense as well, and the rebounding, the playmaking, the high post. I just think overall you can get away with that offense with him in there. Do you want it to be primarily perimeter created? Is that why? Do you think you need a playmaker? Is that why you bring up Jimmy?
I just feel like for the playoffs is where I'm at in my head. It feels like that outside in creation would be super valuable. Because I feel like if you really wanted to, you could do a lot of the stuff we're talking about using Draymond.
You know what? Then let's go LeBron. Honestly.
The money there is so Wiggins is gone. Melton is gone.
You just told me that even if it's Giannis, you could I'm bridging Bron. Bron makes sense.
I don't think he's ever going to want to leave LA, but I would love to see him and Steph play together.
Right, exactly. Let's go Bron.
How do you just get it? How many players do you end up having to give up to get to his number, which is he's at 48.7 this year. And that's basically the number the Lakers can't, you probably need another team because the Lakers can't take back a shit ton more money because they're so close to the second apron. And the Warriors, we know they can't take back a ton more money. So how do you get to the 48.7? Yeah. Wiggins is 26.3. If we throw Melton in there, we're at 38. We're about at 39 million at that point. So I guess Kevon Looney, I guess that gets you there. Did I just math it out?
I think you did. 26. Let's see, 12. That's 38. That's 39, actually. Yeah. And then
Kevon gets you to 47. It's close.
Yeah.
You probably need another team, and you might have to send out another small salary.
Because again, they're hard capped at the first apron. They only have $533,000 to work with under the first apron. And then the problem is if you trade 3 for 1, you have a roster issue as well.
Well, do you? So here, look at this. I think this 3 for 1 would work. It would. So Slow-Mo plus Melton plus Wiggins for LeBron, because those 3 salaries amount to $47.9 million.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have the Lakers. That's enough to bring in. Oh, wait, is LeBron at 48 or was he at 47? I already forgot.
He is at 48.7.
All right, so I didn't get there. So you need to give up, like you could do Lindy Waters, get you there. Does that damage your rotation? You might even be able to like say Guy Santos would get you there. So that would do it. So like Guy Santos, Slow-Mo, Melton, and Wiggins for LeBron. I don't think that guts your rotation.
No. But it got into from a roster spot perspective, because if you're so close to the first apron and you're hard capped, you can't go sign min deals.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was a good point. Good point.
So that's what I'm referencing. It's basically a roster spot issue.
Yeah,
you'll have to expand it.
I mean, you still have to do it, right?
Right, but you'll have to expand it. Like it has to be sort of an enormous deal. Like you have to give up Wiggins, Melton, probably Gary Payton II, Kevon Looney, something else, and then LeBron, and like two guys earning like, Cam Reddish and Jackson Hayes, for example, like a 3 for 4, like a 4 for 3.
Yeah, and you have to bring Bronny back, probably too, in that deal. We got to fit him in there.
Oh, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut about that whole thing.
Would you look at LaMelo Ball if you were the Warriors?
Well, it might be the one place where you can mature. So sure. Can I ask you, like, how does he get post trade? How does he get to San Francisco? Is he driving or flying? If he's flying, it's cool, but it might be quicker for him to just drive the way he drives.
Still, I haven't heard anything about that in a little bit. So, I mean,
it might be outdated. It might be an outdated reference still. No, but like, I still think he needs some maturity. I think there are a lot of empty calories with his play, but like playing next to Steph, if that doesn't give you an NBA education, nothing does. So yeah, I'd be open to it.
Any other names stand out from you before I move on to my final pick?
No, you brought up Zach LaVine, which was the guy I would bring up because him and Steph in the same backcourt. I mean, let's be real. That would be arguably one of the most entertaining backcourt duos over the past 10 years.
You're not looking at, if you're the Dubs, you're not looking at CJ McCollum, right?
Probably not. No,
because you're not giving up. You don't have to give up any picks in that scenario. I'm assuming,
right?
Which might be what I probably wouldn't do it. I was just curious.
Yeah, I mean, look again. If the price is right, I wouldn't hate it. But it's not a guy.
What if the price is just salary? No Wiggins.
Yeah, then I'd probably do it. Yeah,
really, that's interesting. I think they have more options. Is the point, and they better do something. Is my other point.
Agreed.
So my final pick came down to 3 teams, Mort. The Nuggets, who I just really don't think can do anything. They seem kind of desperate right now. The Jazz will do stuff, but they're bad enough. And so aside from Colin Sexton, I don't think Walker Kessler gets moved. I don't find any of their trade candidates that appealing between Clarkson and Collins. And again, they're also bad enough. So I'm going to settle on a small market team that I think deserves a little bit more shine. The Los Angeles Lakers.
Yep. Mom and pop shop for sure. Yeah.
Well, they did a triple P loan, Lakers. There you go. Look, I guess they don't have to do anything because they've proven time and again that they won't do anything aside from blame Darvin Ham. What does this team need? They're like, I think it almost feels like they need more floor spacing. They could use kind of another creator type that's going to be more reliable than D'Angelo Russell, but they just need wings, and those wings need to play defense because their transition defense has been.
Oh, you're going way too into the weeds here. They need something you can simplify this by saying it in a different way. They need two-way guys. They have so many one-way players. There's just no way that they.
Who are their two-way players? There's Anthony Davis.
Yeah, I said they have so many one-way players. Or did I say two-way players? I meant
I'm asking you, how many two-way players do they even have?
One.
Yeah.
One. That's the problem. They have so many one-way players, and that's the problem. That's the issue. Like LeBron, for some reason, by the way, I need to address this because it's frustrating as hell to me. So there are a lot of LeBron fans out in the world. They keep referencing him and his defense as if, he's Miami LeBron defensively, which is just, can we please move on? Like, I get that there is the occasional chase down block. That's cool. Love that. But he's 40. It's totally fine that he's not the defender that he was at age 25, 26. Like, for him to focus on offense, no worries whatsoever. Let's just run with it. But he's not the defender that he used to be. Let's just get that out of the way. Yeah, they need two-way guys. They need guys who can defend the point of attack. They need guys who can hit the three. They need 3-and-D players, more or less, just to surround AD and LeBron. Do they have those guys like circled with some of their current players? I don't know, because how many teams out there would be like, yes, I would like to relinquish a two-way player for your one-way player. Thank you. Like that's not going to happen. I don't know who that is. Like, are the Nets open to taking on something meh for Dorian Finney-Smith? I don't see it.
I think one of their problems is, even though I think when he's healthy, like a Jared Vanderbilt could have some value and that contract isn't terrible. When you look at their salary filler, whether it's Gabe Vincent, Vanderbilt, D'Angelo Russell on the expiring, they just don't have a ton of standalone value. And so if you want standalone value, Austin Reeves, I don't like Rui Hachimura probably doesn't have a ton of standalone value just because he doesn't give you enough defensively. That is the battle they're fighting. And when you get into that realm where, so yes, we know that if they wanted to, they have swaps they could give, but they can trade up to outright just 2 first-round picks.
Right.
And those first-round picks are far out enough that they're intriguing. So you would go a 2029 first, and you could trade a 31 first right now, I believe is what they have available, assuming that the Utah pick, it's only protected for 1 year. So you go 2029, 2031. Now you vary up the levels of protection. That's intriguing. But because you're not unless you're sending out someone who's also intriguing, people, front offices, teams are going to view, we're taking back Gabe Vincent, who only has a year left, but that's part of the value of the trade for you. It's not doing anything for us. They might even feel that way about Jared Vanderbilt. D'Angelo Russell, I think that's easy to say, okay, he's just the salary filler to make it work. He's coming off the books. When you're at that point, though, it makes it harder to find someone or a package that's commensurate, that's worth giving up your last best 2 trade chips. And so a deal I came up with more was it's the salary filler route. I think it's like Gabe Vincent, D'Lo, Vanderbilt. Like it's 3 for 2, 4 for 2, but you have to give up your 2 first-round picks, and you get back Jeremy Grant and Robert Williams III. Is that even so? From Portland, actually, Portland's fans did not like this. If I'm Portland, I'm just jumping at the opportunity. 2 guys who aren't factoring into I would say the 3 years from now part of my program, and I can get 2 Lakers picks in 29 and 31. I do leap at it. Portland fans generally disagreed. I think that's fine. People could disagree. If you won't do it, you won't do it.
Right.
I'm curious what you think from both ends of the spectrum, not just would Portland do it, but is that enough for the Lakers? Because you're not getting both those. I would be shocked if you get both those players with 1 pick, given the outgoing salary that you're sending out.
It does give them some two-way presence up front. Now, the question to me becomes, what's the role? Because Anthony Davis has not shut up over the past 4 years about not wanting to play center. Like I'm a 4, which is just, I'm still not there with it. But like, is he going to expect Time Lord to come in and be the starting center so he can finally play the 4? Or is it going to be Jeremy Grant in that starting lineup? Because whatever you choose there, that might piss him off.
Well, so no, I really, first of all, he's played enough center at this point where even if he's mad, he's not pouting about it. He said stuff about it. But what he
says it every year, eventually,
he's not demanding a trade because of it, though. So
that's true.
If you're getting Robert Williams III, start him, don't start him. That's still, let's say, up to another. So Anthony Davis will sit for some, but then there'll be 10 to 12 minutes he could play with RW3 where he's not the 5.
Yeah, and then they can sell him on, see, we're actually trying to help you. Okay, cool. Yeah. By
the way, I'm not above. Just throw me the 2-way guys in there. You just be super huge. Start LeBron, Austin Reeves, Jeremy Grant, RW3, and Davis. Fuck it. If your offense suffers, that's fine. Your defense would certainly be better, right?
That might be the kryptonite to Phoenix at the very least if they met in the playoffs, because they don't have a lot of size.
Kryptonite is playing without Kevin Durant. So
that too, but like they just don't have the size. That would at least be a major advantage for the Lakers. Yeah, look, whatever gets the more 2-way guys, I'm in.
I was asking you if you think, I'm sorry, I'm talking over you again.
No,
do you think that's enough for the Lakers to say we will get those? Those distant first round picks are interesting, right? Because they have so much value to both the team that is trading them and the team acquiring
Yeah.
them, but also
Yeah.
because they're so far out. If that is the only form of compensation, other teams can downplay it because those front offices know we're probably not going to be the ones making these picks. So,
But are they unprotected?
I'm saying if they're unprotected, that's fantastic. But is that so? From the Lakers end, it's we just gave up 2 unprotected first round picks that are a half decade away. The soonest one's coming a half decade away for non-stars. But from the other side of the spectrum, the Blazers could say, you haven't given us a single asset that helps us right now.
Right. Again, it comes down to what the Lakers are thinking about their own chances. Like, if they genuinely are going for it to try to win a championship, yeah, you probably do that deal. You probably do. But again, are they realistic enough to know that they're not getting past OKC? They're probably going to have a pretty hard time against the Suns, the Mavericks, like even the Nuggets. Like, are we looking at a situation where they're self-aware enough to say we have to look down the line? Because if they are, yeah, don't trade those picks. But I would prefer, like, in a nutshell, I would prefer more than what you return, like what you suggested. I would prefer more than Time Lord and Jeremy Grant. The thing is, can you get more? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know. Out of Portland, I mean, they might be willing to throw in like Rupert or Chris Murray, and that they're not going to give you Toumani Camara. I don't think that if that was and Blazers fans, this is what they were mad at. I didn't put this in the trade, but I mentioned, could you get Toumani Camara as well? Maybe if the Lakers included swaps. Now, if he's on the table, that changes the complexion of everything for me because we're just loading up on guys who play both ends of the floor now. If I'm the Blazers, I need more than those 2 first round picks to make that 3 player.
Right. With Camara for sure. I think there has to be a better deal out there for the Lakers if they're giving up those picks. It feels like it.
I feel like I agree, but would it bring as much? Because I think you could also get into the discussion. Would you rather make that deal or give up 1 first round pick and get Zach LaVine?
At least I then lean into offense.
And you figure, and that deal, you mentioned his name before, you just figure out a way to get Torrey Craig back as well.
Right.
I don't know. I think I prefer the Blazers deal. I understand that it's less splashy, but I still think the best way to build around LeBron and AD is to surround them with a combination of as much spacing and defense as possible, or let's say complementary offense and defense as possible.
Right.
You're not going to get a lot more complementary than Robert Williams III and Jeremy Grant. The appeal of keeping some first round equity and getting Zach LaVine. But like, do the Bulls even do that trade because of all the players that they're having to take back to get Zach LaVine there?
Yeah, I was actually about to say, are we even sure the Bulls would ask for a first round draft pick back given the situation?
Then you go the Zach LaVine route.
But exactly. But that's what I'm thinking, because if you look at, like, you and I have said this during the last episode and this, like, the Bulls should basically just be looking to get out of those deals, like Zach and Vooch, right?
You would do it if you're the Bulls. But how? I guess doesn't that become less realistic if you're not getting back expiring? Like if the Lakers come calling with, so D'Lo and Rui get you to what, 37 about? So you need to come up with another. What is Zach LaVine at, 48 this year?
36, right? 36.
Not making 36.
No. 36 for D'Lo and Rui, roughly, because it's 18.7.
Oh, so 30. All right, 36. You're right. I thought Rui was making more. So that's 35.6. Which, so to get to Zach LaVine's number,
you add Gabe Vincent. Gabe Vincent, and then it's Zach and it's Javon Carter, for example, or Torrey Craig. Yes.
Do the Bulls do that?
Look,
without a pick? I mean, you could throw seconds go ahead, throw seconds in there. I propose.
Okay, I mean, look, I don't know the answer to that, but they are getting off of the money for D'Lo. So, like, you are saving that chunk of the cash.
That's a good point. Now, the other name on the Bulls, what about Vooch? D'Lo, Jalen Hood-Schifino, and seconds for Vooch. Would you do it?
Yeah, why not? Why not just get off the contract for Vooch? Yeah, for sure.
Should the Lakers consider that? Vooch and Davis could probably play together.
Yeah, and he's a spacing option.
And then you keep all your first round picks there as well. Look, if you can get Zach LaVine without giving up first round picks as the Lakers, I really don't think they can. I would do it. Like, that shouldn't even be a question at that point.
I wouldn't be surprised if they could, Again, I cannot overemphasize this enough. The Bulls are horrible negotiators. I'm not even trying
I'm
to
trying to
bury them.
I'm trying to opt. They haven't traded Zach LaVine yet, though. They might be terrible negotiators, but they're not going to they'll trade him for, Josh Giddey Jr. when he's at the end of his contract is what will
No,
happen.
you're looking at it from the other way around. The reason they haven't traded Zach yet is because they just refuse to give up assets to dump him. That's the thing. I think they'd be very open minded to trading him as long as what they got back was just less salary.
That counters what Windy was reporting recently, though, that there's nothing. So you think teams still want something to take on Zach? Because then that's not a Bulls thing. That feels like a landscape thing. Because if you want an asset to take back Zach LaVine right now, like, why do you want Zach LaVine then? Like, there's no, like, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, look, if teams can get away with it, they're going to. I think there are a lot of teams out there that are just kind of playing this slowly and looking at it going, look, eventually the Bulls are going to come to that point where they're just going to salary dump him, and that's when we'll be ready. I do think, again, it's been so negative. The discourse around him has been so negative. Like Winty himself has also been saying for a long time that teams are expecting the Bulls to relinquish assets to get off of him. If that's changed now, I'm not sure what's happened. Like he's more available this year, sure, but
is his contract that bad? I understand. So I look at it.
I don't think so.
It's 2 years and $90 million is how I kind of view it, because this year, by the time he gets moved, it's going to be halfway over. I understand that's a lot of money, but like it's just 2 more years. If teams are still expecting the Bulls to like trade an asset to get off him, and to be fair, it is more than 90 million. It's 46 and 49. So 95 million, but that's a lot of money. I mean,
yeah. I don't know if the market's changed in terms of that, but I do know that was what the Bulls didn't want to do. They didn't want to relinquish assets. That's why they didn't trade him. I'm not sure what his market is right now. I mean, we'll see. But like if they gave up, like if the Lakers then gave up a protected first, that would morph into 2 seconds if it hadn't been conveyed by a certain year. I think that would also be very acceptable for the Bulls.
No, I think it would. I think my problem then is the Lakers, though, is like it still limits other stuff that you could go do. And you're also limited because you're consolidating into Zach LaVine, which gives you very few salary anchors unless you're going to go ahead and trade. I guess you still have Vanderbilt and Reeves. So it doesn't completely strip you of optionality. But if you ever want to go get two-way players, that's a fascinating discussion, though. And by the way, you don't view them as a potential, another guy who it's, we're giving up minimal equity to get beyond salary. You don't view them as a Brandon Ingram team, right? I don't really love his fit here.
No. I mean, again, he would have to space. He would have to be more a defender. Like you have to be either overpowering as an outside scorer like Zach is, so you can lean into offense, if anything.
Yeah.
I think Brandon is he's not good enough offensively, so you can like create an offensive identity off of that. Even though he does give you some playmaking that Zach don't, I would prefer the off-ball spacing element instead.
Would you give up the kit and caboodle? Well, I don't know if it would take the kit and caboodle, but would you go after Jimmy Butler?
I love Jimmy. I really do. But like we talked about this before, the spacing of Davis, LeBron, Jimmy, I mean, there's a lot of quality in that lineup, but the spacing
LeBron would be basically just a screen and diver and spot up shooter on that team, right?
Exactly.
I don't hate it.
No, but like
he's someone you have to give up picks for, and that shrinks your window incredibly.
Right. This
Anybody
new
else
CBA, man. This new CBA is good. No, not look. That's the thing, because I don't know where the Lakers are. That's kind of my issue here. Like, I don't think that there is a clear-cut destination for them. I don't think there's a clear-cut path for them towards the title. I don't know if they're basically just kind of treading water until LeBron is retiring, and then they kind of pivot off into something else from there. Because it just seems as though right now, as currently constructed, I don't believe in them to win the title at all. No. I just don't.
And I don't. Yeah. Do you view them, any of the names we mentioned or trades, do you think make them a contender?
So there is an upside in Zach. I'm not going to lie here, because again, if they lean into the offense, you still have the defensive anchor of Anthony Davis, who takes away shots at the rim, which I still to this day prioritize in a playoff context. You can have a guy like Zach, who finally is that off ball, like very dynamic off ball guy who you've needed for years alongside LeBron. Like I like Austin Reeves, but people mislabel him as, you know, an off ball guy. He's better with the ball in his hands. He's better as a creator, like a secondary creator. If you bring Zach LaVine in there, and this is the most important thing, that he accepts his role, that he's like, you know what, I'm not gonna pound the ball into the floor 7 times per possession. I am just basically grab and go. I'm going to take a ton of spot up. I'm going to cut. I'm going to, you know, back cut off guys as well. I'm going to do everything off ball. Like 80% of my stuff is going to be off ball movement. If he embraces that, yeah, I kind of think that moves the needle enough to the point where we can't rule out that they can make a run.
Do you think they'll do something?
Yes, but I have no idea what.
Like end up moving just a minimum contract to give themselves a little bit more
exactly.
room on the buyout market.
They could do a small thing. They could do a big thing. I have no idea where the Lakers are going.
I will say, if they don't do something that's like an actual upgrade, it's time to. I'll be on Anthony Davis watch leading into the offseason. Because what are you doing at that point? What's the plan?
Yeah, so that's funny you asked that. I just wrote an article at Forbes about basically that they need to figure out a plan, because I have no idea where they go from here with AD.
I have none. Again, I think if LeBron and AD are players you view as good as they are the centerpieces of your team, you are obligated, and you have been obligated, and you have failed on those obligations to better optimize and upgrade the roster around them.
Right. I will say this: if Anthony Davis gets available,
Atlanta,
Dallas should be looking at every option available under the sun to go get him.
No, get out of here.
Oh, Luka Davis? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I think the setup they have now is better for the playoffs.
I think they need like a dominant big. I love Derek Lively, and I don't think they should necessarily give him up, but I absolutely think they need a super versatile big man next to Luka.
Yeah, I hate that idea. I don't hate it, but you're like, how are you getting there without Kyrie?
That's the thing. That therein lies the issue. It's how to get there. But that's one team that should just basically go into brainstorm mode and go, okay, how can we get him here?
I don't think these are two teams he would want to go to, but you know where he would be fun as hell? I was being serious about Atlanta, and maybe he would want to go there. But Atlanta with him and Dyson and Trae Young, that's like I wouldn't move Zachary Risacher either for AD. I don't think so. Like, you would have. That would be a team, but you know where he would be really fun? Where? Detroit.
Oh, Cade. Yeah, Cade and Ivy. All right.
If I have to ship out Ivy to get AD, I think Ivy's been better this year, but I would consider it.
So just like the Cade, AD, Ron Holland core long term.
Yeah, or Asar Thompson, insert one of those guys there.
Yeah, the timelines are a little bit off, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it
either. What about they would never do it? Indiana would be really fun. Him and Siakam with Hallie.
Yeah. But so you're bringing up these elite playmakers, and Trae. I'm almost counting Cade Cunningham in there as not an elite, but but not Luka. What's up?
No, I'm looking at the cost benefit analysis of this.
Okay, fair enough. I'm just looking at the on court.
And also, the teams I just mentioned are nowhere near as good as Dallas at their peak. And so my belief would be that what it takes to get Davis would leave you inferior and also probably more fragile, if we're being honest, leading into the playoffs than what you have right now.
But we agree, though, that Luka and AD would be ridiculous.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
okay, good.
Luka and insert any elite big. Luka, you know what would suck? Luka and Jokic. They'd be awful together.
Yeah, terrible. We actually have to see it. We have to see it so we can see how awful that would be. Yes. I'm leaning into that. That is the biggest, wettest dream there is from Danish basketball fans right now. That is the Luka Jokic. I get at least a question a week about this, and I love answering it every single time, because the question, even though it's worded differently every single week, it's basically, how sick would this be? And I'm just like, very. I love that. It has to happen for Europeans everywhere. It just has to happen.
Any other Anthony Davis trade destinations to mention that might be fun before we?
No, not now, but like when he gets to the age of 34, 35, he's bound to become a Bull, right? Like that's just what they do. They bring their guys
Does
home.
Anthony Davis hate himself?
No, I mean Dwayne
Oh,
Wade
you think the
apparently
Bulls will
did.
pay him a bunch of money?
That's what I'm saying, because and then they'll have the from Chicago introduction, and he'll be scoring like 16 points per game by then, be a defensive liability.
They'll trade him where he wants for his age, like 36 or 37
right,
season.
Like a year and a half into his Bulls tenure, they'll trade him. Yep, exactly. Yeah, it is written.
Do you know where he'd be really fun? And maybe he would would Beal waive his no trade clause to just go to the Lakers?
Beal? Wait.
Yeah.
What?
Like if you did a Beal for AD swap, which I think a third team might need to be involved. I know AD makes less than Beal, right? Unless I'm wrong.
Yeah, there. No, he does. He does.
But he makes too much.
Not next year, though, right? Not next year.
No, not next year. So right now, so you'd have to involve other teams here. But an AD for Beal swap, I don't know. Like, is there any appeal for Beal just being in Los Angeles in the face of a 34-win Lakers team next season?
So book KD Davis. Oh my God,
that'd be nasty shit.
Yeah, no, look, I'm gonna go on the.
Here's the thing. Would you get, if you're the Suns, you're giving up your 2031 pick if they ask for it, right? To make that happen.
Yo, for Davis, dude, I'm look. If I'm James Jones, I even go to Bradley Beal, and I'm not doing this like in the fake way. I'm actually telling Bradley Beal, listen, I'm gonna drive you to Los Angeles my damn self.
We got to give him to waive.
We're going to listen to Enya all the way. And we're just going to do that. Like, I don't care. I will help you move if you agree to this.
I don't. Why would you? If you're Bradley Beal, why would you waive your no trade clause to play on?
I don't know. It's your scenario.
We've gone off the rails. I think it's time to wrap it up. Unless you have anything to add, can you tell the listeners to both of our podcasts where they could find you more?
Yeah. So we're doing a lot of crisscross lately. Maybe we should just tell the listeners what that's all about, because I don't think we've been too transparent about that, because I know there are people who are like, so the same pod is in your feed and your feed.
Look, the truth is Grant has decided he hates speaking with me for more than 10 minutes at a time. Right. So we are recording in 12-minute increment sessions. So you'll be getting one full episode from myself and Grant every other month.
Right. No, but we're helping each other out a little bit just to keep our feeds active. And like, we're giving Grant a break. Obviously, I lost Brian Toporek as my co-host because, you know, he's enjoying life as he should. It's hard on me. It's good for him. So all the best luck to him. So we're helping each other out a little bit, you know, and giving us some flexibility in terms of the publishing. So I love it. I get a chance to talk to you, which I enjoy.
I don't think any of our listeners have complained about the crossovers, but if you don't like the crossovers, I will tell you the alternative is that you're going to get, instead of like 3 to 4 episodes a week, you're going to get 2. So this is just like, I haven't heard any complaints about it being like, that's what creators do now. We probably have some crossover in listenership, but you're not on YouTube. We're on YouTube. So that works out well too.
Exactly. So that's the way it is. And so if people want to listen to this podcast, they can also find it over at the NBA podcast. Like, you can listen to it twice. We would love that.
You should listen to everything we publish at least 4 times.
At least. So, yes.
We'll give you,
and if you're a really lead, 16
twice. There you go.
Right. But yeah, you can find my work over at the NBA podcast. You can also find it at a potpourri of different sites across the interwebs. Yahoo Sports, Forbes, Sports Illustrated. I think that's it. Fortunately. Yeah, absolutely. Top 50 in terms of like, yep.
Until next time. And as always, if you've not subscribed to us or the NBA podcast, what are you doing with your life? We go for over 2 hours on Western Conference teams to monitor during trade season. I hope you enjoyed this. A lot of fun with Mort this week, and we'll be talking to you again in the future, as you know. Thanks a lot, Mort, and shout out the one, the only Grant Hughes, of course. I really do love Grant.
Yeah.
And I hope he doesn't hate me, but I'm still trying to figure it out. We're only like 5 years into this partnership, so trying to figure that out. But
he's a sweetheart. He's a sweetheart.
Grant is amazing. Is the most underrated content creator in this business. It's not There's a ton of he's up there. He's a fantastic writer. Go follow him to force him back on social media at Grant Hughes, at GT Hughes, whatever. Until next time, and as always, I leave you the shout out to the one, though, the only, the indelible, the only truly untouchable player in trade talks, not the least of which because he's not in the NBA right now, Mr. Frank Ntilikina.